Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Denny Giamazzo. Denny is a combat veteran infantryman who is also the newly minted author of Wired for Action, coming out in November of this year, the host of the Be the Standard podcast, and a public speaker at Precision Components LLC. I'll have links to his socials in the show description. Today's episode is brought to you by the Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group helps you fuel your momentum through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a board-certified physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. So he knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor who can prescribe you actual medicine. It's a bonus. So if TRT, HRT, hormone therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, peptides are something you've been thinking about for a while now, or just looking into, look no further than Precision Wellness Group in Southern Pines, North Carolina, in person and telemedicine. Today's episode is also brought to you by Alpha Elite Performance. Get your supplements for the gym. Use code LKO15 at checkout to save 15%. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Denny Giamazzo. Did I get that correct? Denny Giamazzo?
Perfect.
Welcome to Lesser Known Operators, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
You reached out to me. I was surprised. I was like, oh, I think I know who that is. And I clicked on it. I was like, oh, yeah, that is who I thought. I think it is, because you've been popping up and still, I know my listeners have heard this too many times. It blows me away when people are like, oh, I saw your reel, or I saw your funny thing, or saw this. And I go, how? Jesus. The reach is unbelievable on the internet. It's crazy.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's like that happens to me all the time. And people are like, "Oh, I saw you on Instagram." Even when I'm like just out in the city and out and about in my area, people will be like, "Oh, you're that guy from Instagram, right?" And I'm like, "Jesus, wow!" That's when it really surprises me. You're that guy that was on Soft White Underbelly, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" A lot of people follow that show, so I'm not overly surprised, but it's still a little shocking when people are like a guy came up to me at the gym, a girl came up to me at the bar. Like it's happened several times. And then even at the Boston airport, people have been like, they see my machine hat on and they're like, "Do you know Nick Lavery? Are you the guy that I see with Nick Lavery?" And I'm like, it's just shocking to me how it's everything's so big, but it's also so small and recognizable, right?
It is, and it's a weird thing, and it needs to feel weird. Otherwise, it creeps into, oh, this is about me. Well, it's not about me. It's about, it's about helping others, and this. That's why I like having the logo is this up there, right? Like this was all about everybody, like everybody else. That's the base of my show, and you can't let it creep in to be like, oh, this is me. Like, no, fuck. I had enough me when I was drinking, and it was all about me and what I want, and I was putting myself first, and I wasn't taking care of myself or other people. And I'm like, that's enough. We need to get right and do the right thing the right way and moving forward. And that's it. Like, let's get rid of that me stuff. Now I understand, because you have to do the work. So there has to be this balance of like, oh, I gotta do this, but I can't make it icky, And that's the weird thing about social media, because you don't know it's ick until you look at it and go, that's not right.
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been so many times where I've been putting out content or typing up some content, and I'm like, this kind of sounds a little, maybe too much about me, or maybe more overconfident than I want it to be. Because, for me, and just generally speaking, I think finding your purpose and assessing that is way more about, being in the impact business and what you can do for other people, as opposed to, making this about yourself. And, the guys who tend to do that, right? And we're seeing it now. They're being exposed. You can see who was in this game for all of the wrong reasons, like the monetary gains, the fame, the notoriety, all of that. And once you start doing that, you become a detriment to yourself and to the mission.
Yeah. It's I also, from the show and talking to people, and you've got to see this too, right? You start seeing other people's perspectives, and you really, I gain a lot of empathy every time I interview somebody or every time I have somebody on because I get a new perspective, a long conversation. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. I didn't think about this. Oh, that's injuries and all these other things. And you start thinking like, do I know anything? I don't know. I don't know jack shit about anything. And you go, maybe I shouldn't judge. Maybe I should look at this. And yeah, with stuff in the media of people doing things, there's a line like, personally, I hope that I hope the person gets their whatever's wrong with them taken care of. Professionally, that's another story. Like, okay, if we're doing this, if you can attack somebody professionally if they're not doing things in a professional manner and things like that, but I mean, as a person, I hope they get help. That's sometimes now there's the first thing I think. I go, yeah, they're probably going through some shit. It probably sucks. On the business side, that's business is business. That's terrible, but it's weird now because you kind of can separate it, but it all gets lumped in there in the general population, and that sucks. The whole thing sucks.
It does, and the unfortunate part about that is, when the criticism comes on the business side, it's easy to identify, and it's hard to keep the personal out of it, right? Especially when that person's committing, integrity violations, right? That is a personal thing when you start criticizing character and integrity and values and things of that nature. And it's tough to separate the two when um, the criticism is surrounded around those things, right?
I like how you'll get a comment and you'll screenshot it and then you'll make a piece of content out of it, which in the social media era is the right way to do it because you're just using it for more engagement. And the people who support you'll be like, that's not true. And they might throw a comment in there. But a negative comment, for everybody listening at home, a negative comment can sometimes be as useful or more useful than, well, it's definitely more useful than no comment and no like, because with these algorithms, that's the only thing they go off of. But a negative comment can be used for way more engagement than nothing can be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was one several months ago, maybe 3 months ago, where the guy called me a meathead, and I chalked that up into a win column, right? Like that means that my programming's working, my nutrition's working, right? That's a compliment. And so I posted that, and it got a great response, and it got you know um, a lot of comments and things like that. So you're right, man. Just in this day and age, especially if you know you're operating with integrity and you're doing the right things, like take that stuff and twist it up, give it back, um, in a respectful way, right? Like I do my best to stay away from engaging in the back and forth and things like that. But if somebody leaves a comment on a video or something, like, yeah, I'll use that for some fun and just let it bounce off my shoulders.
I got to give a shout out to my girl Jess at Tandler's Tallow. She was the second female I had on to do an episode, but she had a Ranger tab in the 82nd Airborne as a female, and she got fuck people were just saying the meanest things in the comments. Well, today I released an episode with another female, the first female RI, and they're friends. She was the lieutenant when this other girl was a woman, was a specialist, right? And so her episode came out today. So Jess at Tandler's Tallow is in the comments just eviscerating people. And I messaged her.
I love it.
I was like, you're the
I
best.
love
Like
it.
you are just I can't even keep up with the amount of comments you're making and driving up engagement. Like I'm just watching the views go off. I'm like, this is great. And I was like, this. She's been waiting for this episode for months. So, but
That's
you got to
great.
have the right temperament to not let it bother you. To be like, I can't let these things bother me because if you set your phone down, none of it's here, right? Like
Mm,
it's not here. It's not in your tangible space. It is in your business space. It still exists there, but you got to let it go. Ugh.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're somebody who's going to get, caught up in all of the outside negative attention, I mean, this game just isn't for you. It's that simple. You shouldn't have an online presence if you can't handle people talking shit. I mean, that's just part of it. You can't be everything to everybody all the time. It's literally impossible. Regardless of your content, regardless of how pure your intentions are and your thoughts and your ideas, how good those are, uh, you cannot be everything to everyone all the time. And you learn that fast in this social media, internet content game.
There's no consequences for being mean, and people can just make up whatever they want to say, and then they just log off, and you're left going, "Is that really true? Did I do that? I don't
Yeah,
know. I mean, I got a lot of
yeah,
concussions. Is that true?" So you st-
exactly.
you start second guessing what you're doing. Oh, I got to make content for me. But for those listening home, I wanted to say this more, right? The cheapest, easiest way to support these people that you follow online and everything is a like and drop a fire emoji, and then go back to scrolling. And that is the easiest, cheapest, fastest way to support somebody that you don't have to spend any money on. You know, and that will drive up more than everything else. But it's all a weird thing, isn't it? It's such a weird experience, this social media game.
It's just a different world. It's a different animal, and it takes some time to get accustomed to. I've been at it going on 2 years, a year and a half, year 8 months or so, and it takes some time for
Yeah.
sure.
When did you start? The whole time for me has been this weird imposter syndrome thing of going,
Hmm.
well, I don't belong here. And then, you get a following and you start getting bigger. And then and then people that you look up to start messaging you. And you're like, man, what? Don't fuck this up. Like, don't make yourself look
Yeah.
bad. Like, oh, so it's this weird, because we say in, SF or whatever, in special operations, you're always being assessed. And as soon as you stand up in this space, man, you're being assessed by anybody that sees your content. And now people that you look up to are seeing it too. When did you realize that and start having that feeling of like, oh boy, watch your P's and
So for
Q's here,
me,
Denny?
yeah, no. So for me, it happened, I think, relatively quick. I think it was about 18 months ago. I aired my first podcast episode. I think when that started, I might have had 1,000 followers on Instagram, maybe 2,000. I don't recall exactly, but uh, yeah. So that was about a year and a half ago. Maybe 4 or 5 months later, just being a Boston guy in Massachusetts up here, I had a couple people reach out to me and say, "Hey, man, are you familiar with Nick Lavery?" And I'm like, "Of course I am. I love the dude. His content's awesome. He's one of the guys I look up to the most, and I watch everything he puts out." And I had a couple guys that were like, "Hey, man, I can introduce you to him. I think you guys would probably get along well, right? I can introduce you." And both times I was like, "No, I'm good." And the reason for that is I try to be respectful of people's time. And I already know, you can tell by watching Nick's content and everything he has going on, that he's a busy dude, right? He's got 4 or 5 different businesses under the umbrella of his parent company, Precision Components. Um, so I didn't want to just meet him and be like, "Yeah, hey, what's up, man? I'm Denny. Nice to meet you." Right? There's no value add there for me, and frankly, for him, right? I mean, there's this thing in the corporate world that we call equal business stature. When you meet somebody, you're an equal, right? You treat each other as an equal, as big as they are, as whatever. I just have something in me that says I'm going to treat you the way you treat me. I don't care how big you are, how famous you are. I'm not going to kiss your ass. I'm just not that guy. So I had no interest in meeting Nick in that fashion, but I did want to meet him, if I'm being honest. Um, Literally 3 months later, Nick was the guest speaker, or excuse me, the guest speaker for Brothers Keeper Veteran Foundation Gala in Nashville, and I got to meet him there. I met him prior to the gala. We met at the hotel. He was in the lobby. Guys who knew him, we said what's up, and then got to see him speak. Got an autograph book and all that. We topped it up for a bit, and then he actually said to me, "Hey, let's get on a call next week." And even at that point, it was great to meet him. I was like, I wonder why he wants to get on a call with me, right? So we get on a call. We talked for about an hour and a half and just hit it off. right away. It was like we were friends. We, you know what I mean? Just being from Massachusetts, it felt like we knew each other a long time. But that's when I realized that, even more than, Nick's story and how impressive that is, just how he engages with people, how he treats people with, respect. And when you talk to him, he's only thinking about the conversation he's having in that moment. And, he doesn't get distracted, and, he treats people the right way. And I think that's one of the things I picked up on right away, and one of the things I admired the most. And in that conversation, he asked me to join his team as a leadership subject matter expert for the Forge, which is his online community of subject matter experts in a variety of different fields. And he asked me to be an engagement speaker as well, because I had already been doing that. So um, that was kind of for me to answer your question. I know that was a long, drawn out thing there. But to answer your question, that to me was kind of when I realized that, whoa, like you can catch the attention of the right people. And if you do things the right way and conduct yourself the right way, um, your value will be recognized by the right people. And um, I've been working with Nick now almost a year, and it's been just awesome. I'm actually moving down to Nashville next month, or within the next 2 months, to just to be closer to him and the other guys on in the Team Machine. And we got a lot of cool things coming up. So excited for that. But that, again, to answer your question, is kind of when I knew that, this was a serious thing where, being humble, being genuine, and being authentic really is, most important.
It's a strange network, these platforms, and you don't know who's watching. I tell people, you know, I could win the $850 million this weekend, and then the show is probably going to look different in a couple weeks if we do that. So don't hold your breath, but the odds of that are like 350 million to one or something like that. And I tell people with
Yeah.
this content, if you are putting something out every day, you have a chance to win the lottery every day on here. It's a lot better than 350 million to one, but you have a chance, because you don't know what's going to hit. And then somebody's going to be like, I'm going to send it to this person and this person. And then they're sending you a DM. You go, I got one last night. It's like, really? You're reaching out to me? Like, I was going to reach out to you. Like, how?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's very, very humbling. But with that, back to the assess thing, you go, how do I, okay, if I'm getting people to notice me like this and I'm just being normal, how do I stay normal? How do I stay at how I started? What's my gauge to say I'm not changing? I'm not being pulled in a different direction that I don't want to be, to where, because you get leaned so far over, you don't notice it. And then all of a sudden you fall over. You're like, how did I get here? Oh, I bent a little bit and then I broke. How do you stay aware of staying on the tracks?
Um, for me, it's simple. I, especially now, it's gotten, easier for me because I'm part of, everything Nick has going on, and a few different things. And, that's kind of the template, right? It's don't steer off this path of being in the impact business. And that's what we talk about internally is, making an impact on other people. We don't talk about, monetary gains or, fame or, recognition or any of that shit. We talk about how we can make an impact um, on other people. And, that's kind of translated internally, where we do that for each other. I mean, the team that he's put together is so good that um, it's really easy to stay grounded and easy to stay, in line with the values and the vision. I had somebody reach out to me who, has far more followers than anybody I know, or anybody I'm connected to online. He wanted me to come down to Miami, do a workout and whatever. And I knew that that was somebody that I had no desire to be associated with. I probably could have got however many followers out of it, or, however much content out of it. But um, for me, that's not why I'm in this. And to be associated with the wrong person, especially in this day and age where everything's public, everything's online, you really do have to pick your spots and be careful. And we're learning that now with certain special operators that are being exposed for, lying and being deceitful about things for monetary gain and uh, for recognition. So it's important to me that I surround myself with the right people and keep following that vision and that path that's in line with my values.
How do you tell you it's like a weird feeling, right? You're like, "Ah, I like this person. Should we just be friends? Like, are you like, and
Yeah,
it's not a series of questions. It's just, yeah, okay. Uh, yeah, I like that. Like, we should be friends. We should work together and things like that. It's not this complicated interactions back and forth. Guys are weird like that, right? Too. Hey, yeah, hey, you like Warhammer 40,000? Oh, so do I. Yeah, let's be
yeah,
friends. And
yeah.
and then
You
all
want
of
to
a
go do
sudden,
karate in the garage?
want to make bunk beds and just
Yeah,
place drink garage beers and lift weights. Bob, what is it?
yeah.
Blasting Creed. Yeah, okay. Lifelong friends after that. Uh, it's cool to get to pick your team and like that. And he's all over the place. Like he sees a lot of people. And he has that luxury right now to do that. I know my limitations. I have trouble conveying anything to anybody exactly what I want. So I just go, all right, we're gonna see what limits I can get to personally before we start making those decisions. Um, and I don't know who's gonna come along and things like that to
Mhm.
work with and things like, oh God, I
And that's
somebody
part of the fun, man. That's part of the fun is not knowing. When I started my podcast, I just my greatest the best thing that I could think of that could happen for my podcast was, maybe I'll get Nick on as a guest someday. That'd be pretty cool. And now we work together, and I just aired his episode this week. And not even just Nick. I mean, you take my entire network of guys that I've met and girls that I've met just in the last year and a half, and it's insane. The people that I have, I get to call friends and text if I need, and it's wild the network that I've been able to build just in such a short amount of time. And I say that all the time is just how important your network is, and that grows, and the quality of that gets better the longer you do it if you're doing it right.
So you said 18 months, 2 years, really full time at this then, right?
No, not even full time. I still have a full
Part,
time gig as a software sales guy.
yeah. Is that remote or are
Yeah,
you going on the road?
it's remote with some travel.
Okay.
So
So
yeah, but this is a part time thing for me. If it was full time, I'd probably be like you and releasing 3 episodes a week. But definitely don't have the bandwidth for that.
yeah, I have no other choice at the moment. I'm kind of, we're, we're going to rock it to the wheels fall off. And,
Love it.
there's, we're just starting to not make profits, but make money. And, that's I got that feeling a couple days ago. I was like, really? Okay. All right. Now those, and as soon as that happened, it was the same day. I was like, what if we did this? Okay. What if we did that too? And I was like, those are good ideas. I ran it by a couple people that have been telling me stuff and they said, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Like those are both pretty good ideas. I was like, okay, I'm going to start working on those. And when I started and I said, I don't know where things are going to go. The podcast, I don't know if that's going to be the main effort. It's going to be the main thing I do. But to keep everything going, there might be all these other things that branch off of it. Like you never thought you'd be in this position, just like anybody listening to this. Did you think you were going to be where you are now 5 years ago? Fuck no. You didn't think you were going to
Right.
be here. And shit just comes along. You got to be able to react to it and flex with when people come into your lives. But I say that, you've been doing this part time and I'm full time on this for 8 months, really, after I got back from um, working down south in the last year. And one thing, like to be an example, like people, especially on the military side and in personal relationships, they get out and they feel like they're alone. Like you're not required to go put the uniform on and stand in formation and be with your friends and have that job. It's just how it is. We can talk about it, or we don't. Now you get out and that goes away. But hey, just try to just think for a second. That camaraderie and that network and all that other stuff, it just exists online now. And as much as it feels weird or you don't want to do it, if you want to feel connected to the people you served with, you can. It's just a different method of connection now.
Yeah, absolutely. And get when you're in the military, that brotherhood and having those guys around is what it's all about. Even when I was in the guard, I was in the guard, and it was that brotherhood was incredible. But I kind of lucked out in the sense, like my best friend he's still in the guard. He's a CSM right now, deployed in Africa. But you know, I still got my best friend out of it, and he's the guy that I go to for everything. And you see me at my highest highs, my lowest lows, and um, but even for me, getting out was so hard because I didn't want to get out. I wanted to stay in and go to 20th group. Actually, was kind of my plan, but my ex-wife had other plans, so um, that's okay. It was shortly after my deployment. She was very she was ready for me to be done, and she was done with being an army wife, right? And I couldn't blame her for that. Me being away in Afghanistan for a year was tough for her. But yeah, getting out for me was very tough. A lot of guys from the guard, they come back and they go right back to their civilian job after 6, 8 weeks after leave. And I didn't come back to a job. I was full time in the guard before I deployed. So then when I got back, those orders were expired. So I wasn't going back to like a full time guard position. I was going back to nothing actually. So for me, that was tough. It was a very tough professional transition because I wasn't staying in the guard, so I couldn't get on, full time orders again or go to 20th Special Forces Group like I wanted to. Um, so it was a very tough time. I drank for about 8 months straight after Afghanistan. And I was also having surgery on my shoulder. I had 2 shoulder surgeries in that time because I injured my shoulder when I was deployed. And yeah, man, it was tough. It was very tough. It was tough on my ex-wife, um, drinking every day, and she's at work. I'm still getting paid from the army, so you know financially things are fine. But I'm just sitting on a couch every day, all day, just recovering from shoulder surgery, and she's going to work and coming home, and I'm just still sitting on the couch, like not doing anything because I'm bad surgery, but drinking every day. Um, she turned the corner, I'd go in the freezer, sneak shots. Um,
That's
so
a
yeah, man, it was
that's not a good sign. Not a good sign.
no, it was bad. It got pretty bad, and it got to the point where shit kind of hit the fan, and she was like, "You better get some counseling, or this isn't gonna work." So I did that. I went to the vet center. I was at the vet center for about maybe 3 years, 3, 4 years, up until the counselor I liked, she left. She was great though. Um, but yeah, it was wild, man. Wild transition, and it for me to experience that in a guard setting, even if it was just coming off a deployment and being active or whatever, I can't imagine. Some of these guys, some of my friends, like one of my buddies was a SEAL for 25 years. All of a sudden that's gone. So just and then watching, Nick's going to be retiring within the next year, and seeing what that looks like for him, and luckily he's got a lot going on the outside of the army, but most guys don't have that. So I feel for guys that go from that military environment where there's that brotherhood, there's that structure, there's that guaranteed paycheck, there's all these things that wrap up your entire life, and in a lot of ways your identity, and that shit's gone and as soon as you sign your name. So I feel for those guys and girls that have to deal with that. Can't be easy.
It's not easy. I was speaking to a friend of mine at a funeral a couple of years ago. He's like, "How'd it go? How was your transition?" And I was in no condition to answer that question because we're at a funeral and I was hammered. And I was like, sir, like there's no words in the English language or in any language to describe what happens to somebody when they get out. Like, and even if I was able to tell people, they wouldn't believe me. They're like, no, I got this. I'll be fine. I don't know, man. I don't think you're going to be fine. Guard's a little different. They're rooted. They got 2 feet in the civilian world, and then they hop back and forth. But they're mostly there. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's a different relationship, and I don't have any visibility on that. I've talked to people and how they deal with it, and they get obviously when they're full time and like on active duty orders or activated or something, they one guy said he could feel himself becoming more of the uniform, whereas when he was a civilian going to do his drill, he was a civilian and then he'd go do this job and then he'd come back. Whereas the longer you wore it, the more it became who you are. You're like, oh, this is nice. It's nice and easy. It's an easy life too, and a schedule, and it's regimented, and you have to be
Mhm.
there. And it's people say it's
Yeah,
hard, but
even
it's really easy. It really is.
yeah, even as a guard guy that was, like I said, I was active duty guard for 2, 3 years before my deployment even. So then I had, the active guard time. I went to a ton of schools. I did a lot of things just active for state orders. And then it was time to go to Afghanistan on Title 10 orders. Um, but by the time like all of that had transpired, and especially kind of ending my career in a combat deployment, like it was it was it was different, right? I feel like I took it a lot harder than I would have had I gone back to some active National Guard orders again and then got out. It was basically like I was on orders for the Guard active. Then I went to Afghanistan. Then I came home, was on orders medically for a year, and then I was out. So, and I was depressed that entire year, as that was coming to an end. But I think it, I think it just affected me differently coming off of a combat deployment where I was a team leader in charge of guys in combat and going on missions and doing this work that I really loved. And that I think that year overseas for me, is where I built some of the strongest friendships and relationships that I have ever built, and that luckily and thankfully I currently still have. And so it was hard.
You know, and the drinking doesn't help because then you're like, what did I
That made it
lose?
a
Oh,
hundred times worse.
it doesn't help. It doesn't help anything except for
No.
memories when you're in the barracks in like junior enlisted. And even then, once you leave the barracks, somebody's getting a DUI. You're gonna be in formation the next morning for sure if you're leaving. So there's very few benefits. There's a social, you get the social stuff in there, but it does not help when you're already sad. Let's take a bad
Yeah.
situation and make it worse.
And that's kind of how I handle things now. I'm not a sober person, but I definitely don't drink a lot, and I don't drink to excess. And I every time I'm either think I'm going to have a drink or I'm going to be drinking, whether it's a wedding, whether it's like playing golf or whatever it is, I kind of assess myself and say, what mood am I in? Like, what is my mental state? Um, because there have been times where I've done that type of an assessment, and I'm like, I've told myself like I probably shouldn't drink tonight. I'm not in the best headspace to drink alcohol, and then I prove myself right. I'm super depressed the next day. I'm super depressed that night. My mind is in places it shouldn't be. Right now, so I try to do those assessments, and I'm like, look, if I know I'm in that space, I'm not drinking tonight because I know it's just a detriment to my entire like mindset and anything I'm looking to accomplish moving forward. It's not going to do me any favors. So I try to do an assessment before I even drink any alcohol. Um, and I
That's
ask
a
myself the why. Like, why am I drinking alcohol right now? Why am I going to, right? And then when I ask myself that question and I'm present enough to do that, right away my drinking slows to a crawl, and I'm like, this isn't serving me. So again, I'm not a sober person, but I'm very aware now of what alcohol does and doesn't do for me. And that's pretty important if you're gonna consume.
Not everybody has that, wherewithal. First off, yeah,
I'm shocked that
good
I
for
haven't
you.
because I'm shocked that I haven't, but because, my gene pool is littered with people who didn't have that awareness and the ability to do that. Um, so yeah.
There's a lot of pain and bad lessons and hard lessons to get to that point, though, to where you can have a honest conversation with yourself and go, "Hey, let's take it easy tonight. Maybe you should drive."
Yeah. Yeah, and there have been 2 different points in my life where I've really abused alcohol and used it more as a coping mechanism than anything, and the first time was after Afghanistan when I was, struggling with purpose, struggling with PTSD, struggling with, all of that, just transitioning because I knew I was getting out, and accepting that. And then the last time was, about 4 years ago when I was going through my divorce. I did the same exact thing as after Afghanistan. It was like a 6 to 8 month window where I was drinking just about every single night, just trying to process, what is going on with my life and what's happening here. And alcohol was the vehicle that drove, just so many bad decisions. Um, and not bad decisions like DUIs and assaults and arrests or any of that shit, but just poor decisions, maybe dating wise, and um, just putting myself, in poor emotional positions, if that makes sense, uh, through use of alcohol. But yeah, that's kind of when I learned that yeah, I need to be more aware about when and why I'm drinking and try to control it more. And well, I'd say over the last 2, 3 years, I've really got a pretty good handle on that. I think I haven't had any episodes where I'm like, oh shit, I should have done that. you know, um,
Yeah,
there
I'm
used to be a lot of those.
to that drinking once in a while. That's all gone. It's all we've passed the point of no return, and I'm sober now, and there's a lot of good stuff over there on the wall. But if anybody comes for a
Nice.
studio session, I'll run you a tab, and you never have to close it. But it's you know we think we're dealing with our problems and like, oh, I'm going to work this out, and then you're drinking, but then that's just the alcohol talking. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, okay, so now you can't testify in court when you're under the influence of alcohol. Why am I listening to myself when he's drinking and making the decisions? Um, this person doesn't know what he's talking about, but you just keep hitting that button every day when you either when you wake up or in the afternoon or when you got a lull in what you're doing and go, yeah, I'm going to deal with those problems tomorrow. And then you get to tomorrow and go, yep, I'm going to kick that can down the road. That's for later Denny to worry about, later me. Um, and and it's just, and you don't, I bet you don't even remember any of those days, right? Because they all kind
Mm-mm.
of blend together. You go, what did I actually do? So it was just a couple days that stand out. You're like, man, because people say the same thing about the COVID. We were home for like 4 months, 5 months, just watching movies. I couldn't tell you one thing I remember from any of that because it was wake up, check your email, and then all right, we want to watch the Matrix trilogy today, or you want to watch
Yeah.
all the Jaws movies? Let's watch all the Harry Potter movies today. Like I didn't get anything done. I don't remember any of it.
I and I say it all the time, like to myself. I don't really say it out loud, but to myself, like I won't be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised if at some point I just say fuck it and I stop drinking. Um, maybe I'd still maybe eventually like to get married again or have some kids, anyways. And I can't imagine me being able to be a good husband and father if I'm drinking. Um, maybe once in a while the way I do now because, like I said, I'm more aware. But I could see myself maybe at that point just saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore." But we'll see. It's just I'm smart enough, I think, to realize that it's poison and it's really not serving you well, regardless of who you are or how well you think it is serving you, because it's not. It's just again, it's just poison. Um,
It is. But if it didn't make you forget about all your problems, it would be illegal. And man,
mm,
It's just that you can go to any store and buy it. If people really wanted to deal with their problems, there'd be a lot more ways to get therapy, and there'd be a lot less liquor stores. But
I mean, just look at COVID as the example, right? Liquor stores were open, gyms were closed. Let's put that in perspective. You know what I mean? Uh, and I kind of understand like the medical reasons, like, oh my God, like people go through withdrawals, this and that. Well, withdrawals are going to happen for anybody looking to heal. So, um, let them go
yeah,
through their withdrawals and get them in a gym, get them moving, get them active. Let's promote health. Um, but yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
you said you said dealing with the loss of your purpose while you were in uniform. What was your purpose, or what did you view it as?
That's a great question. I think when I was in uniform, I felt like my purpose was to lead and develop soldiers. Um, one of the coolest things I got to do in the military, I like to joke, there was nothing special about my operations. I was just an infantry dude in the guard, but one of the cool things I got to do was go through the combatives program and become an instructor. Um, I thought that was cool. I enjoyed doing it. I trained MMA on the outside of the guard as well. So that's kind of why I was well suited and was selected to go through that program. But um, I really did feel like, especially after becoming an NCO, I felt like I had a lot of purpose in developing soldiers and leading soldiers. And one of my favorite things began to do was conducting trainings on different things, regardless of what it was, whatever I was asked to do. But um, and I became very patriotic as a result of my service, not even necessarily going into the army or prior to the army. I always had respect for the military. I always liked the military and law enforcement and whatnot. But I didn't join the military for patriotic reasons, but um, it definitely became way more about that as I served longer. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think my purpose just became serving and developing soldiers, and with the kind of the leadership that I had. Like I said, my best friend Mike is CSM in the Guard. He's downrange in Africa now. He's a tremendous leader. I was fortunate I got to come up under him, and so yeah, I found a lot of purpose in that, especially towards the tail end, last 2-3 years of my career.
That's like important because some people, myself included, as soon as I got to basic training, I was like, this is it. This isn't the level of professionalism I want it to be. So we're going to chase that for a while and get to where we want to be. I recognized that right away because I got to basic training. I was like, this is not what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like serious, and it wasn't. It was, but there's, factors when I say that to people, like the drill sergeants 2 cycles before had gotten in trouble for abusing trainees and stuff. So everything was toned
Yeah,
way down when I went through. So it was as disappointing as it can be because my buddy, we enlisted together, and he went right
yeah.
across the street to that one, and he said, man, why you guys smoked for like 3 hours a day every day? I said, we didn't get
Mm,
smoked one time, and
really?
not one time.
Wow.
They weren't allowed to. And there
Yeah.
was some pretty fucked up stuff that happened, and it was just all let go. And he goes, and he graduates. He goes, "Fuck you, man!" Like,
Dude, it's yeah. It's everybody I talk to in basic training. Their stories are different. Their experience is different, I should say. Like we got smoked 3-4 hours a day every day too. It was you know, I, everybody likes to be like, oh, basic training was just so easy. When you go in not knowing what it is and not expecting it, and you are getting smoked like that, it's not easy. It does suck. I'm not calling it selection or anything, right? But it's like guys who say, yeah, well, does it hurt to get a tattoo? Yeah, it fucking hurts. You just suck it up and you deal with it. It's like anything else. Anybody who tells you that tattoo doesn't hurt is full of shit, right? They're lying to you. It does. There's pain there. It's a good pain, but it's there, right?
yeah, I haven't got one in so many years because they didn't used to hurt as much as they do, and then they started hurting so much that I was like, I really don't want to do this anymore. Um,
Yeah.
I have a lot of them, but it was all like 7 years ago. I think was my last one. But yeah, I know what you mean. Um, So people get in and they find this structure and they're fired up. Like,
Hmm.
oh man, this
Yeah.
is for me. I want more of this. I want this at a higher level too. And I can't get enough of it. And from what you told me before we started recording, was that your first time where in your life where that structure was introduced and you saw
Yeah.
what discipline could be like?
Yeah. I think, it's funny. I growing up my entire life, there was really no structure. Especially like my home life and whatnot. There was no structure. I grew up, in and out of foster care. My mother passed away from AIDS when I was about 10. Never met my father. I don't know who he is or where he is. Grew up around a lot of violence and drugs and different things like that, physical abuse, neglect, name it, right? So structure just wasn't a thing for me. I was fortunate where I had an aunt who adopted me, who brought me into, she took me kind of out of the city where I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts, kind of hood, and she brought me to this very small town, Thompson, Connecticut, about 6,000 people. And so grew up in like a small town, working on farms. Would get up at like 4:30, go work on a farm, starting in high school. Did that all through high school and had some structure there because I had to be there early in the morning, right? So it was, I was a high school kid and my summer was spent on a farm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning to go to work. All my friends were sleeping in because they were drinking the night before and whatnot. But it's just discipline that I had in myself. I didn't have anybody telling me I needed to do these things. Nobody said you have to work on a farm or you have to go get a job or this is just what I wanted to do. So I did it. Um, and then, graduate high school. All my friends are going to college. I probably had no business going to college right away. Went to college, found maybe a little bit of structure there in terms of here's your schedule. You should be at this class at this time. You should be doing this and this at this time. Um, I did the college thing for about 3 years, and at very best, I was a C student, C minus, because I was there to party. I wasn't there to learn. I didn't give a shit about academics and all of that. I just went to college because all my friends went to college, and I was basically told that that's what I was supposed to do. And then it wasn't until after my third year of school, I basically ran out of money and couldn't afford to go to college anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'll take a year off. Um, Took my college job, turned it into a full time job, which was working the paint counter at Home Depot. So I'm working the paint counter at Home Depot. I'm going to take a year off, work the paint counter, uh, and then I'll go back to school and I'll finish after my year off, my hiatus, I called it. As I'm mixing paint, a National Guard recruiter walked in and right away just spotted me and was like, "Okay, this must be an easy target, right?" Um,
He's
we
probably
start talking.
he's probably hitting all the hardware stores and going to the paint
Oh,
counter. He's
well, yeah, it's funny. He actually came in. He needed some paint, so we
Sure,
start
sure he
talking,
did. Sure he
and
did.
yeah,
He
right,
was
right,
just back sitting in a meeting with the commander,
yeah,
and he goes, I bet the guys at the paint have we tried a specific department at the store. He's got a
yeah,
plan built around like the guys working at
yeah,
different departments, and doesn't hit them too often because he's got to wait for the new trainees to come in and get trained up, hate their lives just enough, and come back and pluck you out of there.
yeah. Oh man, that's but yeah. So he just plucks me right out of the crowd and just says, "Hey, I need some paint." We start talking, and I don't know what it was. I was impressed by the uniform. I was like, "That's a cool." And this is the ACUs that have a pile of shit uniforms, obviously. But I was impressed by it. I'm like, "Wow, this is cool. This guy looks like a badass, right?" So I just started asking basic questions. Oh, you're in the army, like, just asking questions. And then he starts telling me about um, the financial benefits that the guard was offering at the time, which was a $20,000 enlistment bonus, and if you had student loans, federal student loans, they'd pay off $20,000 of your student loans. So I had about 40,000 total student loans, and half of that was federal. Um, so to me, that was $40,000 free, and I was like, shit, like, where do I sign? And I remember thinking like, you know, what I want to do for a job, and initially I was like, oh, maybe MP, and but then I told them that I wanted to be in Iraq and in the shit, and He was like, "Oh, then you want to be infantry?" And so I said, "Okay, cool. I'll just do that. I'll just go be infantry." Um, I didn't know anything about like the 18 X-ray program, or I didn't know what Rangers were. I didn't know any of this stuff, right?
What year is this?
So this was 2006. So I didn't know like really any of that. I kind of had it in my head that like if you wanted to be like special operations, then they had to select you, and like I was completely ignorant to the whole process. If I had known about like an 18X contract for the guard, I would have taken it in 2 seconds. I would have done it. But I didn't even know about any of that stuff. And he didn't tell me about it. He just said, he did say that, because I went to him eventually and said, "Hey, like I'm starting to hear about like, I could go be a ranger." And he was like, "Oh, well, why don't you go in the guard first and then you can leave the guard to go be a ranger?" And so I'm like, "Oh, okay. So I'll just go through basic training, then I'll get out, I'll come back to my unit, I'll go into active service after that." Um, so at this point, I still don't know anything about the 18 X-ray program. Then I get to basic training in our battalion or our company. There's a full platoon of 18 X-ray candidates, and I'm like, who are those guys? Like, what's going on here? And they're like, yeah, those are all SF candidates. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? And then they explained to me what that was, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know that was a thing. Um, so the whole time I'm going through basic training, like you said, you get there, and you're like excited about it. You're like, I like this. This is built for me, and this is where I got structure. Finally, getting to your point here about structure. I finally have some structure. I'm being told what to wear, where to be, what to do constantly. It's perfect. This is all I needed in my entire life. Is just somebody to tell me what I need to do all the time. Um, I responded well to it. I really liked it. And the whole time I'm going through basic training, I'm thinking to myself, I just need to get to my unit so I can get the fuck out, so I can do something else. At the time, I had a girlfriend. She was on board with it. She was like, yeah, she was going to school to be a physician's assistant. She's like, I can do that anywhere. So if you want to go do what you want to do, then do it when whatever. And she was fully supportive of it. And so here comes like kind of a funny story. At the end of basic training, I get called by my drill sergeant to go to dental. I had to get my wisdom teeth taken out. Remember when they would pull all your teeth out? And luckily, this is at the end after I had completed all the training. I got my infantry cross rifles, all that stuff. We're just in maintenance, cleaning the gear, and all that stuff mode. Um, so he comes in and says I need to go to dental and get my wisdom teeth taken out. And I go to dental. They pulled my right wisdom tooth on the Friday. I was graduating the following Wednesday. So they pull my tooth on the right side. All good. They don't give me anything for an infection. They just give me Tylenol. Said, see you later. They said, come back Monday. We'll pull the left one. So I said, okay, no big deal. Well, come Sunday, it's infected. And I have a bulge in my throat over here that is just like if I touch it like this, it felt like I was being like stabbed. Incredibly painful. I go to my drill sergeant, tell him, hey, something's off. I don't feel well. He says, well, why didn't you shave? And I was like, dude, I can't even barely touch this. Never mind shave it. And he was like, well, I don't want to hear any fucking excuses. Get up there, shave. He's like, if you're still not feeling well in a little bit, we'll address it then. And I'm like, okay. Um, so eventually we eat, I go back upstairs, I shave. I went to him a couple hours later and was like, man, something is still off. And he takes me with a battle buddy to the hospital. And come to find out, I have this infection called Ludwig's angina. And what it is it's just an infection from an extracted wisdom tooth that spreads through your throat and that can spread up to your brain. And it's very, very serious. It can kill you. And so I ended up in the ICU in Fort Benning for about 12 days. Um, I almost died twice during two different surgeries. And if you look over here, now I have a huge gash in my throat where they drained the infection from that surgery. So um, I didn't almost die from combat or anything. I mean, I guess I almost did because I almost got shot, but I didn't have anything as severe as that overseas. But it was wild, man. But yeah, that's the military did give me a lot of structure, and that's the first time I was ever exposed to any type of structure. But
the military also tried. When I was a private, the Army tried to kill me as well, uh, with not treating an infection, a blatant infection that was all over my face, in my mouth, tongue, and down my throat.
Oh wow.
Uh, and even looking back on it, I go, wow, they really just kicked that to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, until the point where I was hallucinating because I hadn't drank any water for days. Um, yeah, so I have no faith in the Army medical
Yeah.
system at all. I say all the time, the government, the United States government, is only good at one thing, and that's killing people. And it doesn't matter if they're our side or the other side. They're indiscriminate. We kill without um, thought to stature or
Yeah.
who the enemy is. We don't care as long as we're killing somebody. That's okay.
Our our military has one mission, and that is to train, fight, and win our nation's wars. That is our military's mission, and they take that to heart. And everything else is secondary to that, right?
That's right. We need to be good at killing people. Doesn't matter who it is, but we need to be good at killing people. Uh, that must have been a bummer, man. You're like, I'm going to graduate tomorrow, and oh shit,
Yeah,
I might not even be
I
alive
was.
tomorrow.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like, so they flew my parents down right away. They brought a priest in. It was very serious. And while all my guys were getting their blue cords and graduating, I was in my second surgery during that graduation time at like 10 a.m. or whatever it was. It was pretty wild. Um, yeah, it was. But then after that, I finally do get to my unit, and while I was in basic training, um, we were told that there was an Iraq deployment coming up, and this all happened in December. We were told that Iraq was coming in March, like guys would be mobilizing to go to Iraq to deploy in April, and that's right when the surge happened. Right, April 2007 is when the surge happened with like Third ID and all of that, and so I thought I was going to Iraq still, even when I got to my unit with a hole in my throat, and I met my first sergeant, who's a former Marine recon guy who turned first sergeant in the Guard. Great guy. Awesome guy. Paul Blackburn's his name. Really good dude. He we're having a conversation, and he noticed that there was some blood coming through my shirt because I had a dressing over my tray spot here, and so I had a dressing over that, and some blood had leaked through onto my shirt. And we're talking about the Iraq deployment. I'm all excited. I think I'm going. And he goes, "What's up with your shirt? What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, like that's just some blood from my dressing for a sergeant and whatever." And he goes, "That fucking thing's still open?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's still there." And he goes, "You're not fucking going anywhere." He goes, You can't deploy." He goes, "You can't go to Iraq with that." But I was like, "Well, what if it closes before you guys go?" And he's like, "Well, we have 2 months of train up before we leave, and there's all these check the box exercises that you have to do." He's like, "You're gonna miss every single one of them, so we can't send you down range." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Um, I guess I'm not going." But that injury turned into seven, at least 7 months of recovery between this closing up and then me having the strength again to just, you know, conduct a PT test. There was a lot of, you know, recovery time for that. And yeah, man, it was a wild thing. But during that time, all the guys were downrange in Iraq, and there was like a 20-person element or so that was staying behind.
Yeah, weird D-Suck. That's the most Army medical story ever. Like, hey, we're gonna pull your wisdom tooth out because it may cause a problem in 10 to 20 years for you down the road. And hey, yeah, hey, you remember that tooth you pulled last weekend? Yeah, that dude's dying. Oh shit, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Um, well, can you schedule the
And
next basic trainee to come in here so I can pull their tooth out too?
and I remember even asking my drill sergeant, I was like, "Do I have to do this? Can I just? I'm going home to a guard unit. Can I just go and do this at home?" "Nope, you have to go now." And I was like, "Okay, like just doing what I'm told, right? Like I'm a 23-year-old kid. Just tell me what to do." Um, so yeah, man, that was wild. And then about a year after the Iraq thing happened, where I couldn't go, maybe even prior to that, is when I was like, I want to leave the guard. I went to my readiness NCO, which was my first sergeant. I was like, hey, I want to get out of the guard. I want to go active duty, and couldn't do it. They had already paid me half of my bonus, which was like 10 grand. And, when they pay that and then, make the financial investment in you, like they're not letting you go. Um, Plus we had Afghanistan was already in the sights. Even though guys were coming back from Iraq, there was a 2-year period where they already knew we were going to Afghanistan in 2010. So yeah, that was on the cusp, and they weren't letting guys go because they needed them for that deployment. So I tried to leave the guard 2 or 3 different times and was told no.
What are you doing on the civilian side, or while all this is going on?
Dude. So at first, when I was in the guard, I was working shit jobs. I worked again at Home Depot. Then I went to selling cars for a little bit, um, which I was not great at. Then uh,
That's
then
a
I
good
ended up
sign.
getting on.
That's a good sign for those at home. If you're not great at selling retail cars, that's a good sign that you're not a terrible person.
Yeah, no, right. And then, so I wasn't good at that. And then eventually I got on the active duty guard orders where I, again, went through the combatives program. I did some recruiting help and did all of these things at my unit for readiness. And I remember I was on orders for basically those entire 2 years leading up to Afghanistan, and then went to Afghanistan.
Okay, so you're spending quite a bit of time in uniform then.
Yeah, I was basically in uniform for 3 years full time, if you include Afghanistan in that. And then after that, continued on active duty orders, but I wasn't doing anything because I was recovering from shoulder surgeries and just drinking every day. um,
So were you pretty gung ho at this time? Like, what was your attitude like towards the deployments?
uh, so so our job was especially for a guard infantry unit. I felt like we were part of a provincial reconstruction team, and basically what that is for your viewers is basically a provincial reconstruction team is a team made up of a variety of different forces, right? We had Navy guys, Air Force, a few Air Force, maybe 2 or 3, and then our infantry platoon. But the PRT itself is made up of civil affairs experts, medical experts, agricultural experts, um, you know, medical experts. And essentially what they do is they assess the needs of different villages within a province. So we were assigned to Ghazni province, and we would essentially, as infantry guys, we were the security for that element that was doing the assessments. So we'd pick a particular village or a series of villages, and we would go pull security. We'd sweep the village, make sure it was safe. Then we'd have a PSD, which is a private security detail element associated with that team that was going to engage with the elders. And they would pull security. And then my job and other guys with me was pulling outer perimeter security, securing everything around that operation. And what was cool about it is, our battalion was spread out by platoons. So we had Ghazni province, other guys had like Wardak, other guys had like Paktia, or name the province. But we were going out for 3-4 days at a time. We're sleeping in the villages, we're sleeping in the district centers, we're setting up camps and doing some pretty cool shit. That we were the only platoon out there doing that. And I think the reason we were able to do that is our platoon, or excuse me, our PRT commander and our senior enlisted advisor were SEALs. Um, so we had them as our primary leadership. Then we had our platoon leader, my buddy Mike Mondello, who was very good. Mike Burns, who again my best friend, who's downrange now, very good. But we also had guys from SEAL Team 8 on our FOB that would come out on these missions with us. So we got to do some cool things that a lot of guys, guard guys especially, weren't doing. Um, and that was kind of what we did during, my time in Afghanistan. So it was pretty cool.
And you're feeling pretty motivated for, or and
Yeah.
what about your choice of enlisting? Now you're in Afghanistan. Like,
Yeah.
dusty, hot, far away from home. And you said you were getting more motivated or more patriotic as this whole process is going on.
Yeah, man. So probably one of the most impactful things that happened in my career was working with the guys we worked with in Afghanistan. That those guys that were SEALs, our leadership that were SEALs. And the reason for that is I saw the way they were able to operate. Um, and they got to just wear what they wanted. They grew the beards. They seemed to have this freedom to just kind of do things the way they felt was best. And eventually that trickled down to us. They put a lot of faith in us to let us kind of do our own thing. They didn't press our leadership on much, as far as I know. But just operating with that caliber of, person and soldier, whatever you want to say, it had a good impact on me. And it was like, if I stay in, there's no chance I'm going back to a conventional unit and staying there. I'm going to try something harder. I'm going to do something different. Um, and you and I talked about this before I recorded. Uh, I don't at all, agree with all the romanticizing of soft guys. I think there's not enough credit given to the conventional forces, but just me personally, and just being the competitive spirit that I am, if I stayed in, I was going to go down that path. Um, just based off of that deployment, because I was getting more, like you said, gung ho about the job that I was doing. I was really enjoying it and wanted to kind of explore, more of my capability and what I could do with it.
Yeah, we went on that, and you know, I I agree with you, and but I also have like so much perspective now because doing this and whatever I'm doing it the way I'm doing it because I like the content that I'm putting out. It helps me. Has helped me work through some of the things I didn't get to do in the military, and it's having benefits for my life that I never thought it would. So, yeah, I look at other people's stuff and I go, I don't really agree with that, or like there's too many veteran centric or influencer podcasts or content going, and then I go, man, maybe they're working through something. Maybe that's making them feel better about their lives, and it'll give them something to live for again and to look forward to. Because man, it sucks losing the uniform, and it sucks losing your friends. And maybe they built up a new network and they're feeling good again, and they're being an influence on somebody's lives. And then who am I to judge that person for what they're doing? As long as they're not hurting children, the elderly, or animals, give them a pass on most things. And I don't have to watch it, and hopefully it works out for them. But I look at the other side. Is there too much of it one way? Maybe. Is there too much of it? Or is it probably helping them? Probably. They're probably enjoying what they're doing and things like that. So I try, especially with this platform and what I'm doing, is look at things from a positive angle, moving in a positive direction. And you know, I, I just want for some of the other reasons, I just want everybody to feel better about themselves and things like that. And I hope some of those
Mhm.
things that their people are doing are. But you're right, right? Like I have no problem having somebody from the regular army on the show, or you know, talking about some other stuff, and you want to come on. My segment of the community is special operations. I just want to talk to everybody. I think we have a cool little piece, but I have
Mhm.
people from parts of special operations on that you never heard of, you know. And you're like, oh, it's great. You had a Sade on. And I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, there were Sades at group. Like, they're just working there with us. It's a thing. And so I'm trying to expand the definition of special operations as well to the general public and go, hey, there's all these people that help us. Like my commo guy was a regular Army 25 series, and that dude, we couldn't have done anything without that guy.
Yeah.
Our 18 Echoes were useless without him. He's a wizard. He could wave his hands and magic came out of the box, and we had internet and all kinds of stuff. So no,
Mhm.
uh, we're supported by the most part, but when we're left alone, we can accomplish some great things. But there's nobody's better than one another or anything like that. It's just we do different things, and yeah, kind of what I think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just and we talked about this a little bit before. It's just again that word, that romanticizing of a certain group of the military that, you know, uh has done a lot of work over the last 25 years. Let's not pretend that they haven't. Um, you take what our mission was in Iraq and Afghanistan, counterterrorism, right? That's pretty much a soft mission if you break down what that really means to do that in an operational environment. But um, I think that's led to a lot of the things that we're seeing now is, guys, out there fabricating things, or just flat out lying. And that's what I think is, I'm happy to see a lot of that stuff being called out. And, you know, I think just the overall climate that we're seeing, just online now, it's like the guy who's done a lot feels like he hasn't done enough. And to me, a guy
Always.
who's done a lot is a guy who's raised his hand and said, I'm going to do this country's work, regardless of what my job is. I'm going to do this country's work. They have my respect right away. But it's turned into this competition of, who's seen the most combat or who's got the coolest story and, who's the biggest badass. And I'm fucking sick of it. I'm over it. I really am. You know, I have a friend who's a SEAL and a friend who's a Green Beret. I've seen combat, they haven't. My value to the United States government and what I'm capable of is far less valuable than what they're capable of and what they can do operationally. But people will look at me differently. I have my friend who's a Green Beret is jealous that I have a CIB and he doesn't. That's insane to me. And I understand why it's important as a Green Beret. You really want that award. Like you really want that. You signed up to do that. Um, so I totally get it. It's just unfortunate because again, it's created this competition and falsehood that you need to be the coolest, baddest guy. And then in addition to that, I think it's caused us to forget about, just all of the conventional forces that, did this country's work for the last 20 plus years. And that's why I like what you're doing in, even just the name of your podcast, is calling out that, hey, this isn't about the Tim Kennedys of the world. This is about everybody else too. Um, and that's obviously a totally whole other discussion. Um, but yeah, no, it's just, I just think it's important that there's that balance between, understanding, the sacrifice that everybody made, and not just romanticizing one element of, what took place over the last, again, 20 plus years.
Absolutely. I raised my right hand just like everybody else. I did what my country asked me to do. So many other people did. Most 99% of the people did what they were asked to do, and then they just went home and they just do normal stuff now. And you'd never know that they did cool stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff we've all swept the motor pool. We've all done stupid stuff. I mean, actually, maybe I guess I shouldn't say all of us have swept the motor pool. A vast majority of us have just swept the motor pool, and there's no glamour. There's no glamour in that. But, it's to tell a story and to get people. And even if nobody listens to it, just come on and tell a
Yeah.
story and just be like, have that
And
community and see your old friends on there and
yeah,
stuff like that. It's fine. Fine.
absolutely. And I look like out of all my friends that I still keep in touch with, guys that I talk to more often than not, they're soft guys. They're not conventional infantry guys like myself. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for that work. So I'm not taking shots at anybody in particular, unless they're dishonest. Then I'll do that. But just generally speaking, I mean, I just have respect for everybody and especially that community. But um, I just want to make sure nobody's left behind. And I like that's why I like the name of your show here and appreciate the fact that you have guys like myself on.
Well, that's perspective again. You've got the perspective coming from this side. And how old are you?
I'm 42.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not calling you out or anything, but you can still go to selection. Okay, so uh,
I think
do
my
with that.
VA rate is a little too high for that.
Do you have a code 4 on your DD-214?
Is that the non-reenlistment or whatever?
Yeah.
No.
It can still be
Uh,
done. It can still be done. There's a signature for everything.
the thing is, man, if I thought my body could take it, I would consider it.
Okay.
That's the truth.
That is the limiting factor. Your mind can do it, but if your body can't keep up, then that. But no, so I mean, you're coming at what you're trying to do in your professional setting from the regular army. You go, hey, I'm just because I'm a high performer coming out of here doesn't mean that discounts everything back here. Like this is still part of this whole house of cards that is the military, right? One level's built on another, and it's all this
Sure.
system and things that work together. Rarely does the entire thing operate on its own. That's other
Yeah.
things to do, other branches of the government to do that. Rarely does everything operate on its own. So you're coming in, but you said most of the people you hang out with are special operations guys or special operations units, Green Beret SEALs, what have you. Is that why do you think you were drawn to? Because there's stuff going on subconsciously that push you a certain direction. Is it because
Hmm.
maybe, oh, I didn't get to get myself into that unit, but now that we're civilians, like none of that, there's no units, there's everything. If we've got like-minded people, I can just assimilate with them and like hang out with them, and it's not, I don't have to go into this unit and I don't have to try and break into this thing with this pipeline. I can come from this, I have this experience, and I can go hang out with these people. Or do you think it was like, so you're trying to prove something from where you came from?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. Like I said earlier, like I don't really care. I don't really feel like I have anything to prove to somebody who was special operations as opposed to
I
anybody
didn't.
else.
I don't mean to them, like to you. Are you trying to prove to
No.
yourself?
Um, I don't know. That's a great question. I did struggle, I think. At one point I was working for a small startup company where um the entire the entire company pretty much was made up of guys with soft backgrounds. So SEALs, Green Berets, MARSOC, and I was pretty much the only one that didn't have that background. Um, and I did kind of feel like a little bit of like almost like imposter syndrome, right? I was like, how am I working with these guys? This is kind of weird. They reached out to me and recruited me. Um, and I had a conversation with one of the guys there who was one of the coaches um, within the company, former SEAL Team 6 guy. And he was like, Denny, you belong here, man. He's like, personality wise, he's like, you're a great fit among us. Like, you're just like us. You just didn't go to selection. He's like, that's not a big deal. And, he kind of had to talk me into believing that, right? Because I kind of felt like, how and why am I working with all of these guys when I don't have that background? Um, but he broke it down in a way that made a lot of sense to me. And he was like, Denny, you got to stop comparing yourself otherwise to other people and other things. Otherwise, they'll never end, right? There's always somebody bigger. There's always somebody stronger. There's always somebody faster. There's always somebody smarter. Like you name it, you know, if you just go through life comparing yourself to everyone and everything else around you, it will never end. So you're here because you belong here, and you're among this group of people because you belong among that group of people. Um, and literally ever since that conversation, it's clicked. Like, no, fuck that. Like, okay, the color of your hat was different than mine in the army. I don't fucking care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You have a SEAL trident. That doesn't matter to me either. It's impressive. I'm not trying to discard what it takes to become those things, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for those guys. But yeah, no, I don't allow myself to kind of feel less than because of that anymore. But at first, yeah, I think I was maybe trying to prove something to myself, um, that maybe I was as good, right? Um, but yeah, I've gotten past that, and I think my relationship with Nick has helped that a lot because I've never asked Nick for a single thing, and he's always come to me asking me to be a part of different businesses and initiatives that he has, which means I haven't had to say a word, and he's recognized my value. And anybody who knows Nick, um, he does his own screening. He does his own, due process and making sure that he surrounds himself with the right people. So if a guy like that is pulling me in and pulling me along and being a mentor, then I feel like I'm doing everything the right way in the way I need to be. So
What do you look up to Nick as? Do you look him up to him as like an older brother relationship or as a mentor relationship?
it's a good question. Uh, I think maybe both. You know, he's we're very similar in how we I think and act and maybe present. Like we talk a
And
lot. Just maybe it's just because we're both from Massachusetts.
look, I saw
Um,
that piece of content and look on occasion.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes with a backwards hat, people will say that we look alike, or like I look like a mini me of him, or whatever. But that's always good for a laugh. We joke around a lot about that. But yeah, no, he's probably both, right? He's a friend and he's a mentor. Um, I can go to him with anything from business questions to content questions to I'm just having a bad day today. It doesn't really matter. Um, that's just kind of what our relationship's grown into, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I imagine. And it, the reason that question materialized in my head is like putting everything together, like from your past and going up and then, the military and then losing
Yeah,
that. And now the civilian world's, I don't know, it's a mess, but I don't know, it is what
yeah,
it is. But then you get with people that you want to hang around with and you go, oh man, this is great. And so I don't know, it's just weird how, I don't know if it's the weird's the right word. It's just, these things that we've been looking for materialize, whether we're actively pursuing them or not. And then all of a sudden it's there and you go, I got to appreciate this while it's happening because, it may not last forever, but how can I keep this going? And I got to appreciate this while it's going on.
yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is and that's not the only reason I'm moving down to Tennessee, but one of the reasons I'm moving down to Tennessee is to be closer to him and other guys on the team to you know be more active and trying to make things happen and have a greater impact on other people. And again, in pursuit of that purpose, which right now is to share in my experiences and have positive impact on others. Um, Not doing this for money, not doing this for likes, clicks, any of that other bullshit. That stuff's cool when it happens, but that's not my driving force. And um, but like you said, yeah, you got to enjoy it while it's going on and make sure that you're doing the right things to preserve it.
How does that compare to your purpose when you were in with providing purpose, direction, and motivation? Or have you just converted that over into the civilian world now?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is a kind of a conversion, right? I can sit here and say I love my software job, but I don't. It's just it pays well and pays the bills, and I don't feel any purpose in it. I don't feel any pride in it. It's just something that is good enough to pay the bills, and I like it. But it's this other stuff that I'm doing that is giving me that very similar feeling that I felt when I was serving and leading.
What's it going to take to where that becomes your full effort and you go, and then do you know, have you thought about the change that could happen when you're not financially torn between one thing and the other? Because that's when you go from like amateur to professional, when it's all consuming. Like the only thing I have to do today is exactly what I want to do. And
Yeah.
then where could things go from there?
Yeah, and that's a great question because that's what I asked Nick something similar on my podcast, and his response was, you know, when I get that DD 214 and I can dedicate 100% of my time into this, like I can't wait to see what happens. And if I didn't have to do this other work to pay my bills, um, I'd feel the same way, right? It'd be pretty scary to see what I'd be able to do with 100% of my effort going into this. So
It's a fun thing to think about. because I look at it's like there's a number I need, and then it's like, well, what can we do there? But then I also think, maybe that itch or that thing that's mm, a limiting factor is what's making what I'm doing in the now so good, and it's always there. This factor of I'm not able to dedicate 100% of my time right now. I feel, yeah, we can eliminate it, but then doesn't some of that, I don't know, that drive go away with it? I've thought about that. Like maybe it needs to be there to push you to do as well as you're doing within this truncated timetable that you have. Like, oh, I'm only doing this part time, so I need to make the time that I'm dedicating to this as good as possible. And maybe if that goes away, maybe there'll be nothing pushing me to do that. I thought about that side of things too a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's probably just up to the individual, right? Um, I think some people kind of need that insecurity or whatever you want to call it to feel more motivated and driven to you know accomplish the task. Um, I don't really feel like that's me. Um, I don't really feel like I've ever needed a ton of external factors to keep me going. I feel like I think I pretty much do a pretty good job of that. But again, I think that's up to the individual. Um,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you've been pretty good at motivating yourself?
I think it's my upbringing. I think I've always kind of felt like, in one aspect or another, like, yeah, I'm not really good enough. But at the same time, I've always kind of felt like, um, I didn't want to be like anything like the people that I grew up around. My mother, my grandfather, my uncle, you name it. I've always been just self motivated to make sure that I'm just kind of burying whatever expectations other people may have had for me, even if they're not, even if they're just more self imposed and in my head. Um, I'm always trying to make sure that, financially I do way better than anybody else in my family ever did. I went to college basically only because nobody in my family had a college degree, so I was going to be the first, and I was. Um, I'm just very competitive and um, self motivated. I don't know why. It's tough to pinpoint. I think it just comes from a broken childhood and never really feeling like valued. So I've always felt like, okay, well, I'll create it then. I'll create my own value. Um, and I'll just be as good as I can at whatever I do.
Yeah, you get dependent on yourself. I assume you were dependent on yourself young, and then you go, well, I don't want to let myself down either, because you know it's just you and me, Denny, and you're just talking to yourself there. And well, I don't want to let me down. Was well, I got to live up to my expectations of myself now.
Yeah, it goes to when I was very, very young when, my mother, when I was 5 years old, she was a prostitute and she eventually died from AIDS, but she would leave me in our one bedroom apartment for like 4 or 5 days at a time. And it would just be me. I'd be eating peanut butter out of a jar or crackers if we had them, or, dragging a chair to the sink to get water. Um, so, I was alone at a very, very young age, just figuring shit out. And, even though those things, I was so young that, you know, I remember them, but it's funny to think that, something so early on in my life built the kind of like resilience necessary to, thrive as an adult and kind of put something in me throughout my lifetime and made me competitive. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know, but I feel like it certainly was more than likely a contributing factor.
Have you ever had the a conversation with any of your special operations buddies about the amount of guys in special operations that came from a fucked up childhood?
So I have. There's one guy, I don't know, maybe you know him or not, but Trevor Beeman. Um,
Yeah.
so he reached out to me about a year ago. We started talking, and I read his book, and yeah, we talked about it because he obviously had a fucked up childhood and upbringing, and I wasn't all that shocked to hear that, because I feel like the military in general just draws people who come from, difficult upbringings and backgrounds outside of the officer corps. Um, you know, I I generally think that, that's what enlisted soldiers are made up of. And then I think not all, but lots of officer types they come from more of a stable, collegiate fraternity type background, from what I've seen. And that's not judging good or bad in any way. It's just what I've seen to be fact.
No, it's just profiling, and profiling is wrong. But other than that, it's fine. Um, no, it's true. Officer, 4-year degree. They're generally going to get out of the college at the same time, and they're going to commission at the same time and the same age, and they're going to pretty much come through the military at the same progression and age, and rank and all this other things. And they're pretty set in their ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've talked to a few guys and interviewed guys, and it's really quite a few. They're, they went through something very difficult when they were young or growing up, and then they somehow say, I'm going to take charge of this. I'm not going to let this beat me. And then they wind their way trying to climb a mountain that is insurmountable to some people, and they set the goal on that. Like, I'm never going to let that beat me. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go be somebody that people think is invincible. I'm going to be Superman, and then they go do it. And it's, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of guys in special operations, and maybe that's one other reason, right? Because you're like, I want to go do that. I want to go do that hard thing. And it seems like you're like, I want to do hard things. I want to make this. I want to mentor people. I want to help other people do hard things too. And that's just one of the traits of guys that special operations. So another reason why you're winding your way into those circles as well.
Yeah. And actually, Nick within the Forge, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, he put up a pretty insightful video, just about that, where, you know, when you're going through SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection, the people assessing you on the mental side, they're looking for, someone who's experienced the right amount of trauma, right? The right amount of adversity. And so that makes a lot of sense, right? That, you're going to find guys with those types of backgrounds doing that work. Um, they're looking for it, but people are also drawn to it for all the reasons that you just said. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I don't know what those shrinks are looking for with that test or whatever. I'm like, I went, I went through selection twice. The first time I got hurt. The second time I left no doubt. The second time, but man, you're tired, and you're like, man, I want to go. I want to go, and you're filling out little bubble questions like, this is stupid. This is stupid. And you say, oh, they're looking for the right amount of trauma, and I'm sitting here going, I ain't traumatized shit in my life. Like, I'm glad I'm glad I made it, but that's just the path that and again, I'm not saying everybody,
Sure.
and I'm not saying everybody, but some people just want to win. And I came up, a guy I interviewed the other day, Michael Megan. He's down at Texas A&M as a Ranger E7, working as a with the Corps of Cadets down there. And he said this phrase, and I love it so much. He's like, I just wanted to win. I wanted to win, you know? And that's that. If that doesn't sum up, as soon as he said that, I said, that is what it is, right? As soon as I got to basic training, I just wanted to
Yeah.
win. And I wanted more of it. And I just didn't want it to stop. And then when it did end, I didn't want it to end. And that's why I hung on to the uniform so long. And that's why, as another one of my guests pointed out, the alcohol is the last vestiges of the team room or of the squad bay or is the barracks, right? It's that last good memory of that you had when you were with all of your friends and everything. It was good times before everything got weird and people moved off to other units, or they got out and they went back home, or or they killed themselves. Things when
Yeah.
things before things fell apart, the good memories, and when they drink, they can feel that again. Their friends are right back with them, and unfortunately, it leads to more people killing themselves and alcohol-related incidents, and get the cops being called and all kinds of other shit. But man, for a little bit, for those couple drinks, they can be right back there with the boys or the girls again and hanging out. And yeah, it's just this,
This
it's this thing. But when he said that, yeah,
Yeah, no, for me, it's like when I drink certain things, like anytime I touch a whiskey, it's like that's when I think of the guys. Anytime. Except for my buddy Mike. Like when I'm drinking like a Tito's and soda, like that's what we drink now because we're older and we're trying to drink less calories, right? Anytime I drink any anytime I drink like Tito's and soda, I think about my buddy Mike because that's all we drink when we go out together. He's my best friend, love him to death. But like anytime I drink whiskey, I think of my buddy Warren and these guys that I partied with back in the day as an E4. Um, so it's just very different, right? But it brings you right back there, and it is like, at least in that moment, like you're clinging on to something, something that you really just hold near and dear to your heart. That was really very special to you at a time at the time.
oh, what is that meme that was going around? It's like, man, these garage beers are tasting like I need to call all my buddies in my contact list that I went to war
Yeah,
with.
like
And, that's true. Like, oh man. And when you're drinking, you go, I got to call so and so. And meanwhile, they're like on a family vacation. You go,
yeah.
what's up,
And
man?
for me, one of the toughest ones, that probably the toughest one is anytime I get a tattoo. Because one of the guys in my unit that I went to Afghanistan with, um, his civilian job, he was a tattoo artist. So he tattooed me here and did my 11 Bravo thing back here. While we were in Afghanistan, he did those. And
Super safe.
oh,
Super safe.
no infection, no nothing. It was good. But yeah, no, he was my tattoo guy. He was the guy that, did all of that. And, we got back and 3 or 4 years later, he killed himself. And we had all these plans for him to cover me. And so now every time I get a tattoo and, you know, that's what I think about. I think about my buddy who committed suicide a couple years after we got home. Uh, but there's good and bad from, recalling different things. That's one of the negative ones, but it also gives me an opportunity to think about him and remember, we had some good times also. Just sucks he's not here. Um, but the drinking ones are usually, I'm thinking back to the good times that I had with the guys, most often.
Yeah. It's, it's for a few. There's a point of diminishing returns too, also, because you get to a certain point and then, no, that's too
I like that
much.
phrase.
I don't feel so. I don't feel so happy anymore about this. And and then you start feeling bad for yourself. Oh God, I mean, my one big thing is it's a constant project in my mind, and I work out how to say these things on the show. And my show is all about the guests, but I do work out certain ideas and things I want to say stuff on the show.
Of course.
Man, talking about suicide is very difficult, and it's very difficult to do in a way that doesn't sound like you're making content for people to click on it and share and all this. No, you're making content to help people and to do it in a way. So when I talk about this, I goes, that doesn't sound, right like this, but God, it's such a problem. It's such a problem that everybody's aware of, but we can't seem to find a way to effectively talk about the actual deed, right? Like what happens after it and then what happens to the family. Oh, we need to bring awareness to this issue. And that's where like it stops for most surface level awareness things. That's why I say I made up the 22 push-ups a day paradox. Does the 22 push-ups a day do anything? No. But it also does something, and then it might get people pissed off that it doesn't do anything, and then they go do something to create some program that actually works or some alternative treatment, or they might actually do something to save somebody. But it's a Schrodinger's cat situation where we've got this thing that we're just raising awareness. Oh, what is that gonna do, right? Instead of actually going and doing something. So, and then my other buddy's like, man, there's nothing we can do to stop this. I said, yeah, but we can slow, or we can talk to somebody. And he's like, okay, how do you do that? And I go, unfortunately, training and reps. Like, this shit happens all the time. And if we point out how miserable you're making your family and your friends, and the actuality and the actual pain, like when this actually happens, and what people are actually saying when they're up there giving your eulogy, what they actually mean, they're not saying, oh, we're going to miss you. No, they're saying, how the fuck could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? You left
Yeah.
us. And if you heard that many times, or heard somebody say that, maybe it would click in your head of, how can I do that to somebody? But then the alcohol starts talking, and then the voices and the intrusive thoughts start talking, and you're making a split second decision. So we got to coach people against a split second decision, which is very hard to do. It's very easy to stop somebody from drinking themselves to death, because it takes a decade to drink yourself to death on the most part. Some people are professionals, they can do it in 5, but you know, but we're fighting against split second decisions. So how do we do that? Well, I got to work out the exact way I want to say these things on here, and also talk to people like you and see what you're hearing and saying, and what you talk and things like that, and how it's affected you and the other guys, and then get more people to get it to an actual solution, and not just
Yeah.
a circle where we come up with words,
Yeah, and
but we get to a solution.
I think it's pretty obvious that nobody has the answer here. Um, we've been talking about awareness, we've been talking about checking on your buddies, reaching out, and we've been talking about all this shit for years now, and it's not slowing anything down, and it's unfortunate, because every veteran I know, especially, post 9/11, every veteran I know has lost somebody to suicide, or multiple guys, right? And all we ever hear is, yeah, awareness. Reach out to your buddies. Talk to someone. Don't do it. Um, and nothing changes. And I don't have the answer myself. I really wish I did. It's just so sad, and I really wish we could figure this shit out. It's it's almost like disheartening, and you feel helpless because you really do just want to help veterans to to feel better and not feel like that's the only solution to however they're feeling. And we talked a lot earlier about purpose. I think that ties heavily into this conversation. I think a lot of guys do it because they feel like they have no purpose, and or they feel depressed for other reasons related to their service, or maybe exposure to certain things and violence and whatever. I mean, there's so many things that surround this topic, and trying to get to the why. Um, and I don't have it. I really wish I did.
The the thing that I'm on the most lately is, people don't people don't read signs, and then the second most thing they don't do is listen. Okay, so what do we have after that? Well, since we were kids, how did we learn how to do anything? We learned from watching our parents or watching our friends and things like that. So you get into comparison. You know, you got sat down by that Navy SEAL commander and said, you need to stop comparing yourself to others. That ain't gonna fucking happen. It's not going to. You can take away the bad part of comparison, but you're always going to compare yourself because you have pride in how you present yourself to other people. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't want to live up to their expectations of you, and them to your expectations of that.
Yeah,
So there's a good, like, I think that thing, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, no, I compare myself to other people all the time. Do I let it eat me alive? No, not anymore. but I took a lot of self-talk and other people talking to me to get me off of that position. Now it's like, yeah, I wanna be up there. I wanna be with those guys. I wanna push myself to get up there. So, okay, what's the solution? Well, there isn't one. We've all come up with every closeout meeting, every speech, every fundraiser. We need to do this. We need to talk. Well, oh God, that's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work, right? But what if, not what if, the only thing that's going to work is those people comparing themselves to their friends and them standing up straight and maybe getting themselves out of a bad situation and hanging around with better people, getting physically fit, um, improving their situation, going to going to therapy. And that doesn't mean going and sitting in a fucking room with a doctor you don't like. Maybe that's going and shooting a bow or going out on the ocean and sailing or hanging out with veterans around a fire pit and just talking about shit when nobody else is around, you know, and all these other things. So maybe it's maybe it's some version of that where if other people see people come out of the hole and they can actually see it. But that's where the problem comes with the content is, right? How are people going to see it if you can't show it to them in a way that doesn't feel, again, icky?
And that's exactly why if you look at my Instagram page, right at the top, pinned is me talking about PTSD. Um, because for me to share that, you know, 5 years ago, there's no fucking chance I would have told people on the internet that I had PTSD, and you know, there was no chance. But the idea again, it's about impacting other people, and for me, even to put myself out there at first was very difficult. But I was like, screw it, I'm gonna do it and see what happens. And it's gotten easier, but I constantly tell myself that it's not about me. If it impacts one person, great. That's what it is. And like you said, if they can see people climb out of that hole and get it together and find some purpose through a lot of the things that you just mentioned, going to the gym, surrounding yourself with the right people, you know, um, if they see guys like us doing that, the best we can hope for and wish for is that they follow that example, and we lead with that example at the same time.
So that's the fear, right? Because when you say it's not for me, I know you're serious. I know I'm serious. All my friends know I'm serious. All your friends know, you're serious, right? But people that don't know you, they can just say, "Oh, bullshit," or people that have an old view of you, right?
Oh yeah.
And where you are now, you can just go, shut the fuck up, you know? But somebody just starting out and somebody says that, that might bring them back down. And that might hurt really, really set things back. And that's not helpful. And that person might be in the same situation they're in and just wants to keep them at their level because they're miserable too.
And that goes back to what I said at the very beginning. You regardless of what content you're putting out there and what your intentions are and how genuine and authentic you are, you can't be everything to everyone all the time. You can just hope that the people that do cling to your message and receive it well, and put into practice, the things that you intend, the things that you're portraying with your intentions to help. Um, that's the mission. Not You can't fix the world. You can't be everything to everyone. So put out a message, be genuine, be authentic, be humble. And if you do all those things and in your heart you're leading with intent, then that's it. That's all that matters. All you can do.
Do you ever realize we're just saying the same stuff over and over again, different ways? Like, but that's true, right? Because you practice anything, your basics. We got the basics. We got the basics, and then once you get good at the basics, and you expand, and you take on other things. But it always goes back to the basics. And some of the things that we say and things they're just to the lowest level. We're saying the same thing over and over again. Well, why? Because they work. Like obviously they work. That's the foundation of yeah. I don't I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm here. But it does. We and it you have to hear that over and over again. You have to hear it over and over because, as I said, people don't listen and they don't read stuff. As my buddy Richie at the DFAC said, I could put a sign on the top of the mashed potatoes that says "Don't," or it says "Use the spoon to scoop the mashed potatoes," and somebody would pick up the spoon and the piece of paper and scoop it out with their hands. People don't read signs. All right, so we got yeah, so many people's Instagram that I scroll through. Acta non verba, actions not words. Right? You gotta by doing. But I think it's all just repetitive over and over again, over and over, over and over, and then work on yourself. As Jordan Peterson said, you can't help anybody else unless you fix yourself first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that in and of itself, I mean, is a lifelong process. Fixing yourself. I mean, the shit that I went through, I'll be working through it forever. Just when I think I'm good to go and I've kind of worked out all my kinks and I got it together, it's like something smacks me in the face to let me know that no, it's you better keep working. Um, whether it's relationships or the gym or whatever. I mean, actually, I don't really fall off at the gym, but like whatever it is in my life, there are times where I do need to like be like, hey, you're slipping, and the work's not done, and you're not. It's this pursuit of knowing now that I'm not going to get there, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. No, you're not going to get there. As we said, there's always something. There's always something and get there. At one point, I try to make lately, as people reach out to me, and I'm sure I'm very open with, listen, I feel like I can take over the world and I'm the biggest piece of shit 50 times a day. Like it's a constant up and down. I don't know what I've got this to, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. And then back up and down. Okay. And that's okay
Yeah,
in anything you are doing in life.
sure.
That's okay to go through that because,
I
fuck,
think that's part of the process. Fear, self doubt, right? These are things that you need to experience to be successful at anything. If you just go through this with all the confidence in the world that you're going to get there, I mean, your goals aren't big enough then, right? If you're not afraid, then you need to chase something bigger. That's my opinion. This shit should
yeah,
scare the
it's
living
like
hell
me
out
and,
of you.
yeah, it's like me in the ocean. I'm scared all the time. I still ain't going in there. Fuck that.
Yeah, fuck the
You're very so what's your style, right? Because just from looking at you and kind of talking to you, I feel like your shoulders forward, you're kind of very intense when you talk to people. Do you feel that? And do you feel the more you do it, the more you get comfortable being yourself in giving people advice?
Yeah, it's the more I do it, the longer I do it, the more credible I feel in doing it. Um, and it's more than just giving other people advice too. It's
No, I
Yeah,
generalize
no,
that.
I
There's
know.
there's
But it's also just again that just being genuine and authentic. Those two things that I hammer on and humble. Um, always. And the reason for that is because I can sit here and say like, yeah, you should do all of these things or whatever, push a particular message or narrative. But in addition to that, I'm always going to tell you that like I'm a very imperfect human being and I'm constantly working on certain things within myself. Um, and I never have it all the way under control, like myself. Like there's always something that I'm not happy with that needs work. Um, and that's just letting people know that you're a human being. Uh, if there's one thing I hate, it's seeing somebody online that just portrays themselves as perfect, like they have no problems. Um, that person is full of shit. The guy who tells you he never misses a workout, never eats bad food, never, gets angry, never has arguments with his wife or whatever, that guy's a fucking liar. And I don't want to listen to him, and I'll immediately stop following them. I fucking hate those people. Um, yeah, I like human beings that show humility, that um, can help me get there, but also want help getting there. That's kind of what I'm about. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's fine. No, you you've got to get because would you describe yourself as around people that really know you pretty like intense and focused?
Yeah, my my ex-wife used to get kind of upset with me, right? She would call me intense Denny. She would tell me like, "Hey, we don't need that guy tonight." Um, and so like now, what's funny is I probably get like this more during podcast settings where I'm like fired up about what I'm talking about. But if you catch me in a social setting now, I'm very chill. Um, I don't really get intense. I don't really raise my voice. But when I get in these settings where I'm talking about these things that I'm very passionate about, it definitely my shoulders do come forward. I do get more intense. I'm more intent about how I speak. Um, it's almost like I'm in like engagement speaker mode when I'm like on stage giving engagement speeches, right? Um, but yeah, no, I generally, I've had friends say like, "You seem way more mellow now than you used to be." Um, because like I said, my ex wife would be like, "Hey, intense Denny, why don't you chill out a little bit?" um, so
Yeah, it's like that, perform thing. You got the military. Most of the military is sitting around. You're sitting around doing nothing, and then, oh, we gotta go do something, and then back to sitting around. It's time to perform. I joked because I didn't do a whole hell of a lot when I was at group. I did some cool stuff, but I didn't get to do the team stuff. But um, you know, I would I was joking around up until the thousandth of a second until I needed to be serious. And then it was 100% all in, focused on what we need to do. And the nanosecond it was all over, dick joke right into just goofing off, not taking anything seriously. Um, to the point where one of my buddies like gave me a pink card once because he's like, "You're not taking this seriously." I was like, "Fuck you, man!" And then he he ended up putting me in for like the leadership award of the Q course or some shit like that because he comes up to me afterwards and he goes, "You were right, man. If you wouldn't have been around and making light of everything, this would have really sucked." And I was like, "I told you."
yeah,
And in my head, I'm just being an asshole.
and you can't be that guy all the time, right? You can't, you know. We're talking about shit that really gets me fired up, and I am more intense in this type of a setting. But me and my buddy go hang out, and we're talking about other things that have nothing to do with this, and it's like my voice lowers, and I joke around a lot more, and say inappropriate things and whatnot. But yeah, there's a time and a place to be that guy, and there's a time and a place to just chill out.
When did you start to realize because I mean, so you were selling software and then what was the transition into, you said about 2 years ago, into kind of doing this as a co-main effort? Like, what caused that?
So I got to the point. It's funny. I got to a point where um, I just done a lot of work on myself through therapy, and I really wanted to share in my story and have an impact on other people. And I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Frisella or not, um, but he's the
I don't
founder of
think
First
so.
Form, the supplement company. He's got a
Okay.
good social media presence, but I ended up talking to him online, and I told him I wanted to write a book, and he said, "Nobody knows who the fuck you are." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a very fair point. Like, who am I going to sell a book to if nobody knows who I'm cast?" And so I did that with the intention of not just sharing my story and saying, "Hey, look at me, look what I've been through," but "Hey, here's my story. Let's turn it into a discussion and talk about all these things that are important to me, but should be important to you as well." Like, setting standards, creating habits, holding yourself accountable, executing on the things that you want, right? These are the things that make you a better human being and help you to be the standard, which is the name of my podcast. Um, So yeah, it went from me wanting to write a book and share my experiences to let's hold off on the book. Let's, build, a following and an audience, and then publish a book down the road, which is what I'm doing in November. I'll be publishing a book on Veterans Day.
Releasing or starting to like, is it coming
It's
out?
coming out on Veterans Day. Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're farther along than I thought.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
the editing process will be done in September. Nick's doing the forward. Um, and it'll be out on Veterans Day, November 11th.
How was that process for you?
For me,
Because you've got to be because there's the guys recorded Nick yesterday with his book. We kind of go through it, and the editor rips your heart out right away and goes, okay, just to let you know, you don't know what you're doing here. And then they rewrite, they move everything around and start stacking the stuff up and going, here's what we need to do. We still need to have a story that people want to read. And then they go, okay, now go do what I told you to do, and you come back and blah blah blah. But one point I hit with him was like, how was it for you rehashing your life and getting it all laid out and going, man, like having it all in front of you and trying and reconciling with it all and how you felt and what you went through and all these other different things all laid out at one time.
that was tough. That's probably the toughest part for anybody writing a book with that type of a background and certain experiences, right? Because you relive it as you're putting word to paper. Um, and then when you go through the editing process, you're doing it again. You're rereading it, you're rewriting it, and you're reliving these experiences all over again. I can't tell you how many times I went through my book and different parts of it and just bawled my eyes out. Um, Rereading it and being like, "Holy shit!" Like I hope people can feel this the way I feel it when they read it. Um, but going back to like the editor part of it, so I ended up getting my degree in political science, and anybody who went to school for that knows that you read a ton of papers. So I got pretty decent at writing, and I remember I submitted my manuscript to the editor, and she said, "You know, Denny, every manuscript first draft is a piece of shit." She goes, "Yours is one of the best pieces of shit I've ever gotten." And it was just funny. And she's tough. I interviewed three different editors for my book, and I disliked her the most. I liked her the least. I didn't think our personalities would go well together. I didn't want to work with her. But after talking to her a second time, I was like, you know what? This is the one, because she pushes me and she is so blunt and direct with me that she's gonna help me put out the best products possible. She's so good. She's awesome, and I love her to death now. But when I was interviewing editors, I couldn't stand her. I was like, oh, this lady, she's gonna suck, but she's incredible. Um,
This is the best pile of shit I've ever
Dude, it was
read.
funny. Yeah, she's like, every first draft is a piece of shit, but yours is one of the best pieces of shit I've ever read. It was great.
That's gotta be a good
It felt
feeling
great.
too.
It felt
Like,
great.
all all right, let's get to work. And then you get it back and it's just all red. Like, this is the best.
Mm.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
jeez.
she said the way it worked is she sends it to me in sections. I revise it and edit it and send it back to her. Um, and then she does like a final revision of it. But it's 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 all my words. It's just her input and coaching, and she helped me with some structure and some punctuation, things like that. But the words they're mine, and that's one of the reasons I love working with her. She doesn't try to change the way I talk or any of that. She's like, I want this to be you telling the story. So that part's been awesome. She's awesome.
And you get a woman's perspective because I assume you didn't show it to any women before you showed it to her.
No, 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 no. She's the only one I think that I actually sent the manuscript to. Um, well, and Nick has it too, but That's it.
Yeah, I interviewed an editor who's a Green Beret the other day, and he goes, "Yeah, we went through several editions of this book until he had his daughter-in-law, I think, that he works with, read it." And she goes, "Did you guys mean to make women sound so terrible in this?" He goes, yeah, okay, yeah. Glad we brought you in on this.
Well, yeah, it's funny story. Like just last week, I was editing a particular part of the book, and it was the part where I get recruited out of the paint department. When I told my recruiter about how at one point I had very loosely considered the Coast Guard, and his response to me was, "Well, that's pretty fucking gay." And she read that and she was like, "Does this need to be in here?" And I was like, "No, it doesn't." But it's just funny, like getting that woman's perspective, right? It really is important. I think it's been helpful, anyways.
Yeah, point out things you go because you read that and you go, "Oh, that's just
Yeah,
normal.
that's
That's
what
just
I
my
thought.
speak." Do we have to have that in there? Probably
Yeah,
not. I don't think the book is gonna hit the sales of the book are gonna hinge on that Home Depot comment
yeah,
from all those years
yeah.
ago.
And she hasn't like really picked it apart that much. Like I don't swear a ton in the book, but like when I do, she doesn't try to like clean it up. She's just like, okay, that sounds like him.
Yeah, man. Why are you releasing it on Veterans Day?
Yeah, so I read something online, just I don't even know how true this is, but I read that traditionally books get published on Tuesdays. And so my timeline was the end of the year. And I was like, you know what? It'd be cool to do Veterans Day. I wonder what day of week that falls on. And so it just happened to be Tuesday. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, and initially the editor, the marketing team, like publisher, like I'm self publishing, but I have a team helping me. And everyone was like, yeah, no, I don't think we can do November. I think that's too soon. And I was like, it needs to be November. I'll find somebody else who will do it in November. Um, and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll make it happen. So it was just the art of negotiation, right? Uh, so yeah, I pushed them hard, and they've been great. Like they've hit every deadline, and she's been hard on me to hit deadlines, and so yeah, it looks like we're gonna be able to make it happen. I'm pumped.
What's the name of it?
It's called Wired for Action.
Okay, why'd you come up with that?
Yeah, I was just kind of sitting there when I was reading the manuscript, and that's a great question, by the way, because I was just sitting there reading um, the manuscript and going through it, like trying to come up with a title. And I'm going through it and I'm thinking to myself, like, these were all the times where I took action against, my objectives and my objections. So, like, all these things that I went through as a kid and then militarily or whatever, I had to take action in order to get the things that I wanted out of life in these particular scenarios. And then I was just coming up with like titles that had the word action in it. And then I just came up with Wired for Action. Like, I think we're all wired for action. And it's necessary to take action on against our objectives to get the things we want.
Yeah, make the choice. Make the choice to take
Yeah,
action,
and
which sounds like you had to make pretty early in your life.
yeah, and something that I say often and I think is important is, taking action doesn't require a blueprint or a well thought out plan with a clear goal in sight or a clear end state in sight. It's just I want to be better at this or I want to reach this and take action. Right. Like I said, I started a podcast because I just wanted to share my story and turn it into a conversation. That turned into me being a speaker. That turned into me being a leadership consultant with Nick in the Forge. That turned into me being involved with Pineland University with Nick coming up in 2026. So it just created all these other opportunities by simply taking action. If I had sat on my ass and did nothing, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be on your show, right? So it's just important to get moving. And, you don't need to know exactly where you're going, but you're moving towards something and you can feel it. And I think that's where you're at. Um, you know,
Oh, something's gonna happen.
exactly.
I can
Exactly.
feel the thing vibrating.
Yep. And that's
Uh,
what it's about.
I Yeah, it is. this whole this I mean the start, which is years separated from starting lesser known operators. The start of all of it was 2000, um, yeah, 2019, April of 2019. I started where most people look to get at like way down the line. My buddy calls me as a Green Beret. He goes, "Hey, I got to drop out of this TEDx talk. Do you want the spot?" I said, "Yep, I'll do it. How long do I have?" 3 weeks. Holy shit. So I took a 5 line outline and from nothing, and wrote a 16.5 minute speech, memorized it, and performed it in 3 weeks, and got down to Mississippi State and from Wisconsin, and went and performed it. And at the end there, it's really just what you said, and you're going to find this out more and more. Like Team Week, right? I said all the stuff that happened to me with my injuries. Your life's not going to be this perfect puzzle piece, then it's not going to all fit together anymore. But you got to figure out a way to lash it together and get it moving down the road and find your new purpose, find your new chess game. I talked about playing chess. I never got to play chess on the teams, right? Go to combat. But you got to find that new chess game. I hung up on that little part for 5 more years after that. So I didn't really listen to myself. Yeah. But now I look back on it, it's like the biggest cringe thing for me watching it, because I'm like, I sound so angry, and I was like, that ain't me anymore. I'm like chill, but I'm still intense, but I'm way more chill. And I watch that and I go, and people tell me that. So I started with that whole thing in the beginning, and to where it is now. And do you say that? And now you're getting into, you'll see with teamwork, like, guys, do something. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. They told us at selection in 2012, the cadre standing up there, do something and move down the road. And that team that just starts moving is going, I guarantee you, they're going to finish first, because they're moving that way. And while you're trying to get these perfect knots and these lashings and this design, you're not going
Yep.
anywhere. You're not going
Yep.
anywhere. And they've failed 5 times and started moving 5 times, and they're going to go eat their MRE and be happy and asleep. Well, I mean, not asleep, but they're going to be happier than you are, because we built a boat anchor, man. We built to just drug that thing off with over planning. That was one of the that was a tough day.
Yeah.
Like, we fucked that whole day up of just pushing a tractor down the road that had no business being built, and we suffered for it. The other days were fine. The other team days were fine. That day was pretty horrible. And that's it, man. Do something. Just start something. Go grab your domain.
And
Do one little thing.
and it's exciting almost to like not really have a clear end state, right? You're just pushing through, you're going through life. Like obviously, you have some idea where you want to be and what the future you want for yourself and what that looks like and all of that. But if you knew all of that and you just had these stepping stones to, achieve and everything was right in front of you, I mean, who do you become in the process? Just become a rat going through a maze, right? Looking, it's so much more fun almost to not really have that blueprint in front of you, and you just work towards something and keep moving, um, and just take action.
It's healthier.
Yeah,
It's healthier too,
yeah. I think it's better for
because
you for sure.
uh, I've a lot of guys on here, especially on the enlisted side. It's never enough. Like, oh, you get the beret, that's not enough, because you get right to group, and they go, "Hey, man, everybody's got a beret, and everybody here is probably a lot more badass than you are. So go fucking mop the floors, right?" And then you're like, "Well, I'm going to go to this school, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on this task. I'm going to go on this deployment. I'm going to do these great things. I'm going to do this." And then you get done with that, and you go, "I want
Yep,
more. It's not
yep,
enough. Oh, but now I'm running out of time. I gotta do more. Oh, now my family left. Oh, now this is all I got left. This is all I can focus on. It's my only thing left in life, is the team and the guys and the things like that. And you've swept us. You've sacrificed everything, and maybe that's okay. I do like to point out that maybe that's okay. Maybe you're okay with it. like sacrificing everything to get to that point. Um, but yeah, having an end state and reaching that end state, not I'm not happy, not healthy. Like you get there and you get like depressed. Where because if you're having stuff, Jimmy Carr, hilarious comedian, but man, some of his stuff is very insightful. But one of his talks, he goes, having stuff sucks. Getting stuff is a lot of fun. No, getting the thing, and it could be nothing tangible. It might not exist. It might just be completing something.
Yeah.
You know, the gym or health or fitness or a run or things like that, or something that means nothing to anybody else. But as long as it means something to you, go get it.
Yeah.
Go get it. Um, yeah. Let's see where it is after that. Fuck, man. Well, we got way off there because we were in Afghanistan. Then we went like an hour this way and we came back. But the last thing about that, how many times did you go on combat trips with the guard or in uniform? Had a roundabout way. We were in Afghanistan, and then we took an hour trip over into professional development and leadership and Denny's life. Now, 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 as I usually do, and my guests are well aware, I'm gonna gloss over the rest of your military combat experience and just ask, like, did you get to do? Because we don't have any say in where we go on deployments and things like that. But as far as the military experience and getting what you wanted out of it, did you get to do what you wanted to do as far as combat and the military?
Yeah, I did. I, I think anybody who's in the infantry, they want to be in active, engaged ground combat, right? That's the verbal criteria to earn a combat infantry badge, and I think anybody who goes into that MOS wants that. Um, I didn't see a ton of combat, but I feel like I saw enough to know that um, I was able to react and do my job under fire, and my leadership did a great job as well. All of our guys really reacted well and did exactly what we were supposed to do each and every time. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I got what I wanted out of that particular element of what I was looking for. Um, the issue for me was after that, I just wanted more. um, we talked about that a little bit earlier, just wanting more. And that's why I wanted to go to 20th group after my deployment. But yeah, I definitely feel like I got enough out of that experience that it was what I wanted. But again, you know, you get what you get. And yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what led or why did you take the road towards getting out of the service instead of making it to selection?
That was strictly driven by my ex-wife.
Yeah.
I made the decision after I had recovered from my surgeries. I was feeling pretty good physically. Um, it was coming up time. I was getting out of the army anyways, where it was time to either get out or stay in, or get out and then go right back in. Um, and she didn't want to do the army wife thing anymore, and that wasn't part of our plan when we initially met. The plan was, I'll go to Afghanistan, I'll get back, I'll get out. It really was during that deployment where I was like, I think I want to keep doing this, right? And she just wasn't on board with that. And I didn't blame her. It wasn't, there's no resentment there or anything like that. But she basically drove that decision, and I allowed it. So
Do you think about that one quite a bit because it didn't work out in the end, and it wouldn't have worked out if you would have gone to selection anyway?
it's it's what I initially thought about. The first thing I thought about when the divorce became final was like, okay, I kind of gave up what I wanted for her. Um, and yeah, that it it's something I still think about from time to time, but at the end of the day, I don't question it because that's just life's path. Like that's God's plan for me, and being a Green Beret just I guess didn't really fit into that. Um, but now I'm in this. situation where I'll never do that again. Um, I was in a relationship where, more recently, about a year ago, 10 months ago, where, she wanted to settle down, get married, have kids like now. Um, and in order for me to do that, she wanted me to, you know, less focus on the podcast, less focus on speaking, less focus on all these other things that are obviously pretty important to me. And, I'll never do that again. I'll never give up what I want for somebody else. It's either, come on this ride with me or I'm not the right person for you. Um, but at the time with my ex-wife, we were already married, so I wasn't gonna, go down that path to pursue, you know, um, what I wanted, I guess, at that point. Looking back, maybe I should have, but I don't know.
With anything, anything happens. There's an action and then there's a reaction. So we made this decision and it didn't work out and it led to you not doing what you may or may not you may not also the other side, you may not have been happy in doing that. It might not have worked out. Um, it's a long process to get there and sometimes it doesn't work out. So the overcorrection now into the relatively present last year or so is to make that decision going, no, I don't. Do you think that you overcorrected with some of those things, or do you think you went, no, this is actually where I want to be, and that's how I actually feel, or do you think it's some of what you do and say is an overcorrection from that thing happening in your past that you focused on?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I have a ton of clarity on that. I don't think it's an overcorrection. I think I'm kind of now just in this place where um I've like set these boundaries for myself, and I'm gonna get what I want out of this life. And um relationship wise, if somebody else fits into that, then that's outstanding. But I won't settle for anything less or, give up on, the things that I want again in
What do you
that way.
what do you want?
It's a great question. I want to keep doing the speaking. I want to keep up with the podcast. I want to continue to push my message and help as many people as possible. Um, and that might require more attention and effort towards and time towards things outside of a relationship. Um, maybe eventually I'll get to that point where I can balance that a little bit better. And I feel like I'm there now. I feel like I could maybe take that on now more. But at the time, I was doing a lot of speaking engagements and traveling and all of that. So um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just if somebody else can fit into that, that'd be outstanding. But um, my goals aren't going away ever again.
Yeah. And what sacrifice are you going to be willing to make to give up on that, right? What is going to pull me away from that? And to be to be the, you can't be the best at everything. You can be the best at one thing, maybe in your life you can be the best at that one thing, but to really be good in an area where a lot of people can to be the best up there, God, that's a commitment. God, it is. It's like, do you have the level of not give a fuck about yourself or other people that you have to undertake to accomplish a lot of these things? Like to get my beret and tab, I didn't give a fuck about anything else at times. Yeah, and I had a family. I don't have that family anymore. I and get in the group and make those decisions. And now with this, I go, what am I, what am I willing to sacrifice? Am I willing to lose everything to try and get to it, to be the best? Because man, that would be a lot of fun to get to a point where all this gets to like that. And then I break it down and I had a great conversation with a return guest the other day. It's like, are you happy or are you content? And he added, fulfilled. I'm fulfilled. So in what you're doing now and what you're chasing, are you happy, content, or fulfilled in what you're doing now?
These are the things that are feeding my soul. So that's fulfilling for me. Um, and I always say that, fulfillment is greater than happiness. Happiness is just a short term emotion that's eventually going to let you down. If you're chasing happiness, then you're really chasing nothing. You're chasing something that you'll have for a little bit that'll eventually just let you down. But if you're chasing fulfillment, that stays with you. Um, and being content is just unacceptable.
Damn, because I'm content. Yeah, I'm content in like in the emotional sense of things because uh, I haven't been happy in a long time, but I'm content doing what I'm doing, and like it's like this weird. But everybody has a different definition of things as well too. Um, and I go with because you the drinking and stuff. I mean I used to have a lot more emotions, and I used to be happier to other people. It was also destructive, but when I was drinking, and when that all went away, I feel like all of those emotions and all of that happiness kind of went away too. And now I'm not sad, I'm not happy, I'm somewhere in the middle, I'm content, and I hope that I can get this to a place where I can continue doing this because man, I being depressed and miserable is very painful. And if I had to sacrifice never being happy again or fulfilled to just never feel that bad ever again, I would go with content for the rest of my life and and be content with that. To never feel that bad, to never feel that shit again.
Yeah. Yeah. And, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you're putting a lot of effort into this, obviously. 3 episodes a week. That's a full-time gig. That's a lot of work. I know how much work goes into just putting one out a week. Um, I mean, does that provide you some kind of fulfillment on any level? I feel like it must. I mean, interacting with,
God,
solid dudes and people and girls all the time. I mean, that's got to provide some level of fulfillment.
I think it does. I think it does. Um, But it's like everybody asks, "How's it going?" I'm just trying to keep my head down, and work because from past experiences, and you same for you, right? Man, there's just the harder you work when you are motivated to do something, and when you've got that drive behind you, the more you can get done. And that way, when you get to a point when you're like, "This sucks," oh, I've already got so much momentum built up. Oh, okay, just okay. Let's keep going, and that'll end. And then you can push. It's like the odd shaped rock, right? It'll slow down when it gets to that point, and then you get over it, and it rolls over again, and it gains momentum. And I don't know. I don't know. I like it. I like what's going on, and everybody's different too, right? I got a lot of blows to the head, like a lot of concussions too, and I think about that too, and I go, man, if content doesn't feel that bad, you know, and everything like that. And but depressed and weird thoughts in my head, and then these memories of being concussed and did I take care of this and getting medically retired and all this other stuff. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I say for everything's different. And once you find that, and it seems like you've found what you want to do, and you just got to keep your head down and go after it. And maybe it won't make us
Yeah.
happy, but maybe be maybe it'll just be good. Maybe it'll just be good, right?
And like I said, this is the stuff that kind of feeds my soul. And, when I get off stage and I have, 50 people come up to me afterwards and, say how much they loved what I had to say and, thanks for sharing and all this other stuff. And that's the stuff that like motivates the hell out of me is like, how many more people can I impact like that? Um, that's that's what's that's what's special, and that's what makes you somewhat of an outlier. Is being able to have that impact on other people.
Okay, man. I whatever you're doing, I think you're doing it right, and I hope
Thanks, brother.
you can keep doing it, and it works out. I mean, you're surrounding yourself with the right people. I have no doubt that things will be just fine, and especially because uh, you just have the intensity. You're like you and you could see it when I'd ask you questions. You're like deep in that question about like why, what are we doing, how are we doing it, and that sort of thing. And I can see it, and so other people that means other people can see it too. Or and if they didn't, maybe they'll see it now. So, but I think that's a good spot to wrap up. I got 5 questions that I ask everybody, and then I'll cut you loose. How's that sound?
Sounds good, man. Let's
All
fire
right,
away.
brother. Tough one here. What is your response to thank you for your service?
I always say I appreciate the support. Um, I always feel very awkward when I get that question. I don't like that question or that statement rather. Thank you for your service. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. But I know it comes from a good place. So I would just say, hey, I appreciate the support. Thank you.
All right. This is a from your perspective, a deviation from the normal question. The normal question is, what is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces? I have a loose definition with the show. I bring on anybody that's operating at a high level in their field, which you are, but the question was written as like special operations operators or whatever. All right. I might just cut that whole part out. I'm just going to ask you the question. So, what
Sure.
is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
I think it's a can do and a never quit attitude. I think when you're pursuing something that is that difficult and that hard to achieve, I think you kind of have to have a few screws loose, and I think you have to be willing to sacrifice everything to get it. Um, I can just think of I've asked myself the question like, what if I was going through like SEAL training and like I was gonna drown or something? Like I would fucking drown, like, and they would have to revive me because I wouldn't. I just don't have that in me to be able to quit because I just always had it in my head like if another man can do this, then I can do this. Um, and people have asked me like, "Oh, do you think you could have been a Green Beret or this and that?" And a selection process can be you can get out kicked out for a million different reasons, right? I can definitively say that I wouldn't have quit, but that doesn't mean they would have seen me as the right fit, or I wouldn't have gotten injured, or these other things. But I think that don't quit attitude and can do attitude is probably what separates a lot of high performers from just the average or the norm. Um, it's just a different mentality and belief in yourself and your ability to perform at a high level.
What's the one moment of your career you wish you could go back and relive or redo, and it wouldn't change where you are now?
That wouldn't change it. Um, yeah, man. I think my career in the military. I don't know that I would change anything. Except maybe I would have done more due diligence about other programs that were available to me and other avenues of approach for jobs I could have done. Um, but again, I don't really have many regrets in that regard. It just is what it is, and God had a plan, and you know, being a special operations just was a part of that.
It's okay. What is the best piece of advice that you received during your career?
That's a good question. The best piece of advice I received during my career was from that E8 Navy SEAL. He was our senior enlisted advisor when we were in Afghanistan. One of my guys was mouthing off, being a smartass, and um, as a punishment, I decided to just smoke him, make him do a bunch of push-ups, make him move a bunch of sandbags, do stupid shit. And he pulled me aside and just kind of had a smirk on his face, and he was like, "Hey, I just want to ask you about this form of discipline." And I was like, "Sure." And he said, "How does that benefit the team?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, just food for thought, but anytime I've ever handed out any type of discipline or corrective action, I've made sure that what they did was beneficial to the team." And that always stuck with me. Whether that meant cleaning the weapon systems, whether that meant, name the thing, right? Uh, After that, every form of discipline was more about what can I make him do to benefit all of us in our as a team, as opposed to just some pointless discipline that's just meant to make him feel stupid. Um, I thought that that was a great piece of advice, because it really just helps to continue to build on that team culture as opposed to, let's just build up this one guy in this one specific area. Like, let's benefit all of us. So I love that advice.
That's fantastic. That's some NCO shit right there. That's pretty good. All right, man. Last one. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Mm, wow. Um, it's the same. Uh, I think then and now I've always been afraid that um, whatever I'm doing is I'm gonna fail at. Um, I've always been afraid that like I'm not gonna get what I want out of life, and I think I'm getting to that point now where I'm 42 years old, and being a father is something that I'm still hopeful for. Um, and so I'm fearful that that won't happen, and I have always been fearful that that won't happen. Um, so yeah, I think it's the same.
That's okay, man. That's okay. Um, got some time left to think about it too.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Thank you for coming on. As I, yeah, we meet people all the time, and like couple minute conversation or a text or just messages in Instagram, and then you never meet the people. You're just doing serious business with people on Instagram, and you never meet them or talk to them. So the best part about this is I get to meet new friends, and then I get to sit down and have a 2 or 3 hour conversation with them, and then they go in my phone, and then we know each other, and then it's just gain this. Because when's the last time you had a 2 or 3 hour conversation with somebody you've known your whole life?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is the longest I've conversation I've had on a podcast. This has been awesome.
oh, I could have blown
Usually
us out of the
usually they're about an
water.
hour, hour and a half.
I've I've did a 4 hour one once, and I went, never again, never again. But the one I released yesterday was, God, 327, I think. Um, but uh, she and I thought, whatever. Uh, it's tough to get women in the military to come on the shows because they know they're going to get torn up to pieces in the comments, and it's fucking wrong.
Just
It's
crazy.
it's bad, but she's got the temperament. She's all about it, and she's like, "Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it." And so I was like, all right, Nick, screw your head on straight. It's not a team room guy. You're gonna tell this person's story, and because a lot of people are gonna watch this and listen to this, and this is gonna be on the internet. I do that for all of them. Like I take them all very seriously, but you have to, you know, be very careful with this because this doesn't happen, and you can put a bad taste for other people that look up to her that might go on your show or one of your friends' shows, and you have to be very careful with it. So, extra careful on that side of things, and that's those things. So, but I get some long one. I do some long ones, but I said, 3 hours is where I can get the most in. I can speak the most. I can learn the most about my guests. Everybody can, and if people that think they're nobodies can come on my show and get like a Joe Rogan experience where they get to tell their story, and hopefully this evolves into that where I can and do that for
yeah,
people. Um,
yeah,
then hopefully we get to that point. But yeah, I do the longest shows of almost all my peers, and that's
yeah,
okay.
man.
That's okay.
If you like doing it, then there's nothing wrong with it. That's all that matters, and
I
that's where you
feel
get that fulfillment.
I feel rushed in the hour. I feel rushed in an hour. Uh, and then, but if I got 3 hours plus or minus a half an hour on either side to play with, oh, there's no need to rush. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
Let's chill out.
yeah,
Grab a cup of coffee, favorite beverage, get your creatine. I got my creatine, and we'll chill out,
yeah.
So,
Um, so I got Nick. I think Nick's gonna come into Nashville around like the end of November. I don't know if that timeline works for you, but if you want to come down, if you can, that's kind of what I'm looking at for him. There's a studio down there that I've used 3 or 4 different times when I visited there.
to record, so we can record in person if you want. But if you can make it around the same time, I'll do you guys in the same day.
I think it's like 8 hours. I think it's 8 hours from me to Nashville,
Oh,
8 or
drive?
9. Yeah. Um, I like having all my stuff with me, so I tool all over the place. No, yeah, we'll come down and sit down, have a conversation, as long as we can hit the gym, brother.
Fuck yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a great gym that I use every time I go there. I'm gonna go in the same one. So yeah, I love that. There's a great gym there.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Um, again, I appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to come down and do your show. Well, you got to move first, so you get settled in. I'll come down. We'll record.
Weeks, man, 6 weeks roughly.
I'm sure something will
Can't
go
wait.
wrong, so plus or minus a little
And
bit.
will go always goes wrong. I'm just praying like let this one thing just happen smoothly. Let me get down there. Everything can go to shit once I'm there, but let me get down there.
All right, brother. You got anything for me?
No, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. It's a great discussion. I think you're doing great things, and I'm really happy to be here and look forward to seeing you grow. So thank you.
Appreciate this. We all boats, all ships rise together. So, bye, everybody.